Check my. Hey, Sean. See, it's good. See, I can hear myself.
All right.
Again.
Uh,
Can you speak into
try
the
your
mic?
voice.
Bonjour, ça va?
Okay. Now, can you try singing a little bit?
Bitty bitty bum bum.
No, but really singing so we get so he
Okay,
gets
let me
the
try.
levels on the mic.
My heart belongs in just one place. In an empty hollow space. Laying deep inside the hole. Breathing life into my soul. Pulsing through my veins. Echoing in waves flowing through my blood. Taste it in my mouth when I'm throwing up. Butterflies are dying, now I'm dying. Oh.
That was a great sound check.
It was. I forgot that's what we were doing. I really did. I was like, okay, I think we just started.
Was that actually the end of the song, or did we just all kind of come to it? It was like, oh shit, we're wasting good stuff here.
That's the throw up song.
All right.
Very nice.
As long as you're not throwing up sets in here, you're fine.
Ha,
Gang
ha, ha.
signs.
No, I got you.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, it was a bad joke. That's all. You tried, man. They can't all be winners.
Yeah.
I try. I just realized I tried throwing gang signs, but it just looks like I'm playing the trumpet.
How are you not on the stage? Freddie, we should give it up. We're clearly not qualified.
Yeah. I'm seriously underqualified for this shit.
Sad truth of the well, you work with children. You know our future is a little dim. You know.
Oh, I was
It
gonna
means
say,
well.
yeah, it's so bleak. Yeah.
Or are we coming back into the emo phase? I know we're going heavily conservative with the next round of college graduates. So I don't know.
I just read this really interesting study by this college professor.
Can we start? Because I have a feeling this is going to be great material and I don't want to miss any of it.
Hey, folks, welcome to Bouncing Brains. I'm Sean Hatfield. He's Freddy G, and our guest tonight, Analyssa Shultis,
What's up?
Word.
brought us in with that excellent rendition of an original piece, right? Correct?
The throw up song.
Oh, we're
Throw up
keeping
song.
that.
I'm keeping that. That's
Okay.
great.
Nice.
I'll be bootlegging this on the Asian market.
Everybody that watches this and has been watching us for the last 30 some odd episodes, y'all know we have these random ass ways of starting this shit. So for the new ones, this is sometimes how we get started.
He's
I'm
like
not-
a magician going, I didn't really saw her in half. I just you don't misdirection. Come on, Freddie.
Word.
It
So,
is a word. Bleak, you say?
Bleak indeed. So, read this fantastic article. Don't ask me, don't quote me. I don't remember where I saw it. But I know that I read it and I wasn't dreaming because I dream about reading articles sometimes. This college professor basically says that kids are coming into college and they don't know how to write basic essays. They don't have the basic structure down because this past, I guess, school year was the first group of kids that were wholly under the No Child Left Behind Act kind of thing. And so he's saying that that it has had a detrimental effect on the education system in that we're spending so much time preparing kids to take a test that we've neglected things like teaching them how to sign their names in script and teaching them the basic structure of an essay, or how to argue.
That's actually true because I was actually watching I don't remember if it was a documentary. I think it was a documentary where like they were comparing the scholastic testing here in the US, comparing it to other testing around the world.
To other countries, yeah.
And like ironically, our way of testing proved to be a broken way of fucking testing. And it's like, because they compared to like top like universities like around the world. And
like
then,
Finland.
yeah, and Greenland and shit that you don't even know that existed around the globe. So yeah, they said that this one, and I believe there was one more country. I forgot. I really did forget what that other country was. Came out as like one of the most broken ways of testing students to learn anything, everything from math to reading to writing. And there's even a couple of countries that actually do not test students. Like they don't test them to see if they learn the material. They use some other strategy, but and then they did this like 5 or 6 year study on people that graduated from a university, and like how they try to gauge how prosperous they were with like whatever they studied, and they came out much higher than somebody that was like tested or whatever.
There's also this great book. This guy, John Taylor Gatto, who's like my Jesus, my pedagogical Jesus. And his whole idea is that schooling in the United States is just that. It's rote memorization.
Yeah.
It's not about critical thinking.
Yeah.
They're eliminating critical thinking because I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I got from it is that the infrastructure of compulsory schooling is that the government is funded by big corporations. Those big corporations need people to work for them in their factories on the lower levels. They need people to be submissive, to be obedient, and to not think critically and question the man.
That's the reason that they didn't want people to grow up thinking with critical thinking skills. And George Carlin has the greatest bit about that. And that's I mean, I don't know if you got it from
We
him.
should totally edit in that George Carlin clip right now.
I don't think we can. I think we would get kicked off YouTube.
We are incapable.
We do not own the rights to this George Carlin video.
We just have like a moment of silence and let them imagine that they just saw a George Carlin clip.
Okay.
But
yeah, he has, but he does. He has I think it was a great bit, and that's basically the premise of his bit. He says that that's why I was going to ask you if you heard it from him, because that's exactly what he said. They don't want you to learn critical thinking because the man doesn't want you to be like smarter than the man, basically. So they don't want you to have that's the one where he says because it's a club and you're not in it. You know what I mean? I think that was one of his punchlines.
right. What I could be wrong about this, but I think it was Jonathan Taylor Gatto that talked about the origin of our modern scholastic system being from Prussia, which was kind of
from Prussia.
I may be confusing him and another writer that talking about the same thing. Basically, schooling being used as a way to fund our funnel workforce into modernized, industrial, manufacturing. Which is no longer what we need them to be doing. You know what I mean? I don't know if you followed that whole thing where journalists are being hassled by people throwing hashtag learn to code at them when they got laid off.
I totally missed that.
Yeah. It's
good for you.
It's a real big thing.
That sounds terrifying.
No, well, I mean, they got laid off because their parent companies were poorly funded and not being profitable, which is funny because a lot of them were the online publications who have been touting for years the death of printed newspapers. And it's like, well, Some of that includes you too. And hopefully someday you too as well, because I mean Bono's getting annoying at this point, but that's another story.
I once thought, do you guys remember the Scorcher? Like way back in the day, we used to have like this summer concert. It's called the Scorcher, and they would bring like all these tribute bands. They'd have like a Led Zeppelin tribute band, a Van Halen tribute band.
Missed that one.
And there was like never a legit band. They were always tribute bands, but everybody was like, "It's so cool."
My school was not that cool.
No, not at school. It was like at the, I don't even know what the name of this arena is anymore. Like it used to be the Dodge Arena. Then it was like the
State Farm.
State Farm. Is that what it's still State
Still
Farm?
State Farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they would have this thing, the Scorcher, and they had a U2 cover band. And their set went on for like, I kid you not, I swear, 3 hours probably. And I'm just traumatized. I never want to hear another U2 song again. After that set, I was so burned out of U2. I don't care how good or how great that song is where he's like, "One love."
I'm gonna go on record and say this.
I'm willing to go for an official number. If it's not original material, there is a, I'm willing to go hour and negotiate from there. But 3 hours, nah.
I don't think I've ever said this on record, but I've never been a fan of U2. Now, I'm not saying they suck or I don't like them. I just, if a U2 honestly, if a U2 song would come on the radio, I wouldn't know. I'd be like, oh, you would have to tell me, oh, U2 sings that. Oh, okay, cool. But yeah. Other than that,
I think the question you would ask on the survey would be, have you ever even once in your life heard a song start to play and thought, oh, that's a U2 song? If not, they're not important.
Yeah, no.
Perhaps there's somebody out there who has, that from, I get it. Some people like the Smiths. That's cool.
And then some people worship Led Zeppelin.
Again, a weird one. It's okay. You know what I mean?
See, but Led Zeppelin, I get it. Like Led Zeppelin is I mean, I'm not a major fan of Led Zeppelin, but I mean, I can see.
I can make you a major fan of. I can make anyone a major fan of Led Zeppelin.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see that.
Before or after we have the conversation about the thievery?
What thievery?
They got. There was a.
Oh, when they got robbed and they stole Jimmy Page's Black Beauty guitar, and that was, I think, a separate case. But he had this bomb, beautiful black Les Paul with like 3 gold pickups. He literally named it Black Beauty. And that was his go-to guitar. So I think it's a 1957, 1958. Oh my gosh, I'm going to kick myself in the butt for not knowing the exact model. But it's a Sunburst vintage Les Paul that he's famous for. And he's famous for having that guitar because his Black Beauty was stolen. But they also did steal like a whole bunch of money out of the hotel that they were staying in when they were playing Madison Square Garden. And so all the money that they were going to use to pay the drivers, to pay the people from the tour, that was all stolen out of one of those safety deposit boxes, which I guess is not very safe.
Apparently not.
I was actually referring to the lawsuit against them for Stairway. Was it Stairway to Heaven?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, that band.
Yeah.
That band that was like, no, we totally came up with this song. And then I played the 2 songs together, and I was like, dude, nada que ver.
Yeah. What was that it?
Yeah, I think they won
but was that part, because I'm not connecting those two, was that part of that?
You can go and listen to the original, or what they purport to be the original song. They won the court case, and those are notoriously hard to win. So I'm guessing there was either something. I have not done my due diligence on it, but like I was never on the bandwagon to begin with, so it was just kind of like, yeah, sure. If we got to do a public flogging of some artist for something, sure, why not? Are they still doing tours? I know they were at one point.
They did some shows after Bonham died, but not really. I think they have like reunions once in a while, and they'll have John Bonham's son play. But that's about it.
Yeah.
I
I know
was kind
that
of irritated with Pink Floyd because they waited until after I believe it was the percussionist had died before they were like, yeah, let's do a reunion tour. And it's like, be honest, I don't give a fuck about any of y'all but the percussionist. So fuck off.
Who was that? Nick Mason? Was that his name?
Was it Mason? Mason or Wright?
Oh, I should totally know this. Oh my gosh. 8th grade me is going to be punching me, punching
had
angry fists in
all
the
the
air right now.
albums. Why did you read the liner notes if they meant nothing to you?
I'm just glad that that AC/DC still at it. I think they just went on tour again.
I thought one of them just dropped dead recently.
Yeah, Malcolm Young just died of dementia.
But weren't they?
Horrible way to go.
But they. I know that the tour came to or have did they stop? I'm not sure on that because they were supposed to go on tour in January. Wait, February this month.
This is the first that I hear about this.
No. Or was it at the end of last year? It was recently that they were supposed to go on tour again. And they were actually going to start somewhere overseas, I think, and they were going to end somewhere in the U.S. Somebody
Well,
Googled
hadn't they been getting ready to replace Brian Johnson?
I've been hearing about that because he's going super hoarse.
Because he's going what?
He's going...
His larynx is giving out.
Yeah, the original singer of AC/DC is a guy named Bon Scott.
Yeah.
And that guy he just like breathed fire from his voice box. And when he died, I believe that he choked on his vomit in his car or something.
Yeah,
He was super drunk, the way that all rock stars seem to go.
Never sleep in your own back seat, kids.
Yeah, especially with the windows up, with a lot of alcohol in your system. So they replaced him with Brian Johnson, but Brian Johnson purposely strains his voice to try and match what Bon Scott could do effortlessly.
Yeah.
And if you listen to, I think it's Live at Donington, their concert from 1990, you can hear Brian Johnson at the end, and he's just he sounds like an old woman who smoked too many cigarettes and ate too many biscotti biscuits, whatever those things are.
I know what you mean. You're going for the cotton mouth, but it's a reference, the stretch on the reference. Very appreciated. Yeah. Classic rock and roll. The ones that didn't die of drugs just died of horrible old people shit. You're just should have gone for the drugs.
Yeah, that's sad.
We've had this conversation. If at some point there's got to be a ripcord at some point of no, I'm going for heroin. You're just
pretty much. I mean, if you're gonna go out, at least go out in a blaze, right? I guess.
In a blaze of glory.
Yeah,
I remember when we were teenagers, we used to talk about the most rock star way to die, and I think that we came to the consensus that the most rock star way to die would be of a heroin overdose as the airplane was crashing down to the ground.
What the fuck?
Because most rock stars either die in plane crashes or of heroin overdoses.
Yeah.
If you were in a light aircraft.
Oh, and you had to be 27 years old.
Right.
It's funny. It's funny that you said that because I was about to say there was a fun fact somewhere. I mean, it's not that fun, but there's a fact out there somewhere that I read online that when Kurt Cobain was in the 2nd grade, I think, or 2nd or 1st grade, they were kind of doing that shit of what do you want to be when you grow up or whatever. So Kurt Cobain told his 1st or 2nd grade teacher that he was going to grow up to be a really famous rock star and he was going to tour the world. And he was going to, I don't know, this is the part where somebody Google it, but I don't know if he literally said and I will die at 27, or I'm gonna go at a very young age, either or. And his teacher like laughed at him like he was crazy, and then they asked him like what he really wanted to be, and he just kind of like stayed quiet and didn't answer anything after that. And well, we all know what happened. So yeah,
I'm gonna have to look that up on Snopes.
on who?
On Snopes.
The fuck is
You guys
that?
know Snopes?
No,
Yes.
no, I don't.
You know
What's that?
Snopes. You need to know Snopes.
No, I don't know. Yeah, check. Yeah, for real. Some shit. I'll.
Don't give the audience homework. They'll either
Well-
look it up or they'll believe you.
No, I really would want somebody to look it up because I think that's because I'm really trying to remember if he said.
I hope they don't look it up. I hope they just take you
I-
at their word. We're
I-
trying to build cult followers here.
Yeah. Does Freddy G have enough ethos?
But yeah, I thought that was crazy because at such a young age he already knew. I mean, it's kind of cool that you kind of have an idea what you want to do, but for him to know that he was gonna go as well.
I was never in
fucking
the whole like live fast, die young type of mentality, but like I can see where the draw wouldn't necessarily be there because it's just like, okay, we bang a few things up along the way. I won't have to deal with the consequences anyway. Woo, off into the sunset. But I mean, and you can. What's really sad is you see the people who didn't quite have the follow through on it. Like maybe they just kind of bounced off their late 20s into rehab, and now they're kind of looking around going, "Oh fuck, I didn't intend to get this far."
I honestly think like on that, I honestly do think that people, maybe some people or most people, I honestly do think that the people that really believe that they were gonna die young, I think that there's something that sets them apart from everybody else. Because I really do think that the ones that really do believe that they're gonna die young, like they first of all they really do believe it, but I think that there's something inside them that not everybody has that really lets them know that, hey dude, you're gonna. I'm positive that they're not gonna know like the day and or maybe not.
But they
even
just have that sense that they're not
yeah.
gonna.
that they're not gonna be.
And you know what's so weird is that I feel I've always predicted that I was gonna die young when I was like a teenager.
But you're still young though. So.
And I was so I just felt like I'm not gonna make it past 27. Like I have to get famous by the time I'm 27. I have to do something really cool because I'm not gonna. And now here I am, 28, and it's like, okay, so either I dodged a major bullet, or I'm gonna live forever, or I only have a few years left. But I do have that weird like it's I don't know, I guess I describe it as a swirl. It's like this swirly sensation that like death's pull. It kind of feels almost like a magnet kind of drawing you towards it. Not that I want to die, because since I had kids, that's like the one thing that I've been trying to avoid.
Yeah.
But it's this weird,
Yeah.
like I've always just kind of felt that.
Yeah, and I really do think about it, like with people that have actually like vocalized that shit, and they did. Like I know at some point in some interviews, Cobain talked about dying young, and he did. I know one that would said it on numerous occasions in interviews. Was Tupac, and Tupac very firmly always said, "I know for a fact that I will never see 30." He always said that. He was like, I won't live to see 30. And there's even one interview, and it's creepy when you actually go back and listen to that interview. There's one interview where he even says something along the lines of that he knew that he wasn't going to see 30, and he always felt that his life was going to be taken at the hands of another black man. He said that, and that shit was fucking creepy, cause like he said it with like such fucking certainty that it. Like,
Well, he did also live in the ghetto, so I guess the statistics of that are Statistically speaking.
Well, what,
I was going to say, that if the people that you more frequently violently piss off are of a certain, whatever indicator, then, you can reasonably roll the dice and make some statements of prediction.
you can say race, Sean. I don't think race is
man.
banned yet.
I
know you struggled to kind of like...
No, if he'd have been like, those Jehovah's Witnesses, man, they're going to get me at fucking, 25. I don't know, man. Who's pissing off the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But it's crazy.
Also, like again, looking statistically, man, like there's that age in there of like, I think it's like 24 to 27 where it's like a lot of people die at that point doing dumb shit. And it's not necessarily the people that are going like, oh, I can never see 30. Sometimes it's the people going like, I'm gonna live forever, and then bam, straight into a brick wall.
Yeah, then you have those. Well, I mean, I don't want to be a dick like that. I was gonna say, then you have those fuckers that like think that like I'm gonna be like 90 maybe, and then you see them like snort lines of cocaine and shit, and dude, bro, 90 is not even close to it. 30 sounds more like it, you know what I mean? So
like, I've been saying I'm gonna live to 250 since I was 19 years old, and then proceeded to do a whole bunch of shit that would probably indicate that I was not going to make it.
yeah.
But hey, everybody's got to have a goal and a hobby.
There you go.
For real.
I like that. A goal and a hobby.
Not the same thing.
Never the two
That's why
shoes.
That's why I told people before, like, don't stress too much about like fucking. Y'all right there, champ? It's just completely fucking break. Are you hot?
No, I like making faces at the camera. When
Oh.
you guys aren't looking, I've made like 5.
Oh, I literally saw your mouth and I thought you had mumbled that you were hot.
I was
So,
saying this chair sucks.
Oh.
It's got that leathery thing that like does that weird
See,
weird sound every time you move.
Oh, it's just the sound that bothers you. Because I honestly, yeah, that's pretty uncomfortable.
It's not that bad.
Anyway,
I've already had one viewer like was making comments to me, and he was like, "And that chair looks uncomfortable," and I was like, "Yes."
It is very fucking uncomfortable.
Price an artist must pay to display their music. No.
Yeah. So just do what you can with the time that you're here, and make sure you just don't fucking waste away. Was my point to that whole thing. That's what I tell everybody, because there is some people that obsess over the fact that like, what if I die tomorrow? And I was like, well, dude.
I think the thing that I've been obsessing over the most is what if my family dies tomorrow?
What do you mean?
Like, what if somebody in my family dies tomorrow? That's been something that I've been obsessing over.
Hold on.
Not so much.
Time out. So like, and I don't mean to be a dick about it. I really don't. I don't. But so like, nobody in your family has ever died.
Oh well, this started with the death of my aunt in October.
I feel you.
So
I think you told me about that.
and we were pretty close. I mean that was the closest person to me that has passed away, and it was really sudden and it was really unexpected. She was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in August, and in October, 2 months, just about 2 months to the day that she was diagnosed, she was gone. And it was really, really difficult for me to reconcile that I'll never get to see her again. I'll never get to talk to her. I'll never get to like make memories.
Yeah.
And everything reminds me of her all the time. And I feel like because work life and family life is so demanding, I haven't really had time to properly grieve or mourn.
Yeah.
Or come to terms with it and make peace with it. And it's just kind of cascaded into this fear of of every time my husband drops me off at work, I'm scared that he's going to get in a car crash, or that my kids are going to get hit. And I never felt this way before. Like, it never consumed me the way that it does
Yeah.
now.
And I was gonna say that because I've experienced exactly the same thing that you're going through with when my cousin passed away a couple years ago. I think it's 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years, and I don't remember exactly because I don't like to think about it. But when he passed, I felt the same way. Like I felt like it hit really close to home. Well, I mean, it hit close to home. I get it because I saw him every day. Like we literally hung out every day after work because we had the same schedule. So we would go like well, I didn't drink, but he was drinking and I would take him and I was basically his designated driver or whatever. So then he passed, and when he passed, immediately, like this is the difference between me and you. I got to grieve right away because I remember like when I got the news, uh, it was Sunday morning, and that was the first I hadn't spoken to anybody. It was literally Sunday morning at 8:30 in the morning, and my phone rang. I had not spoken to anybody, and that was the first news um, that I got. And the person that gave it to me, uh, there was no fucking filter. There was no warm up. Um, he just said, "Hey man, how did your cousin die?" I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, he's dead. Everybody's posting rest in peace shit like all over social media and everything. Like, what's going on?" And I was like, well, and I just hung up. And I called my aunt, his mom, and she lives in Mexico, and I couldn't get a hold of her, or whatever. So I went through this, and first you go through the shock and shit like that, and he was very close to my age, and but I got time to grieve. But my point is that even though I did get time to grieve, like shortly after that, I was horrified. I felt like you. I was like, what if my mom goes? Back then, my mom was still living. I was like, what if my mom goes next? What if my dad? So I got really paranoid. I would call them throughout the day, like for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
My parents didn't text, like they weren't very good at texting. So it's not like I could text them and expect a reply. So I would like periodically call them. I started calling my brother that he doesn't live here or whatever. I would call him and I was like, dude. And then for a long time, I carried that in the back of my head to where like I kept thinking, who's the next to go? Like I kept thinking that shit, and like that shit doesn't let you sleep, and like that's how bad it was.
Yeah, it
And then
is bad.
I dealt with everything sober and shit. So like I wasn't drinking. I don't do drugs. Like so that made it even more that that made it even more difficult. So, and then like again, that's why I asked you: has anybody in your family ever passed? Because other people, like in my family, have passed before, but it didn't affect me like the passing of my cousin. When my cousin passed, I shit you not, it was the first time ever in my whole life that I had ever been terrified by my own death. Because after I went through that, one day I woke up and that no longer horrified me. But then what horrified me next is like, what if I die? And then I became very fearful of like today being my last day. And it got to the point where I felt like it wasn't letting me live my daily life. Like I didn't feel comfortable driving. It got to that point where like
Slowly, it starts to consume you. It takes over one thing and then another thing, and then it's just you
yeah.
feel like
And
immobilized by it.
I couldn't get rid of it, and I started to feel like, is this how I'm gonna feel the rest of my life? So then I spoke to this one friend. We had a conversation, and he just told me, he's like, dude, the only thing you need to do is talk about it. And I remember when he told me, he pissed me off because I was going through all this shit, and I felt in my head, I was like, dude, it's fucking easy for you to say just to tell me to talk about it. Like if talking is gonna make a fucking difference. Like you don't understand what I'm going through. This is literally what I was telling this poor dude. I feel bad now because I was literally, that's the way I was talking to him. I was like, dude, it's not that fucking. And he's like, no, listen to me. You need to talk about it. If you talk about it, and this will piss me off even more. He said, if you talk about it, I guarantee you that feeling will go away. And I got up and I left because I was genuinely pissed. So I was like, all right, man, whatever. And I took off. And then I talked about it. I talked about it to my mom first extensively because that's who I felt comfortable with. And we had like this, I remember we had this long, like 2-hour conversation just about that. And then I talked about it to somebody else the next day. And I think I talked about it to somebody else the next day as well. Like people that were around me that were going through the same thing and that we were grieving as well. And then slowly, like the fear of me passing went away. And then I called my friend back and I was like, hey, bro, sorry for being a dick.
That's so...
Yeah, I was like,
That's
sorry.
really comforting, though, because there's a lot of people out there who don't ever get to hear that and don't ever realize that, maybe it can be that simple. And even though it might piss you off because you think it's not, just having that out there as an option is worth a shot. What do you have to lose?
Exactly. And that's why I've also gotten so comfortable with like talking about my anxiety and my depression, because I used to keep it a lot to myself, and I'd realized that was like way more damaging to myself. But I also now I do it because I tell people, like, don't be ashamed to like talk about it. Don't be ashamed to like let it out. Don't be ashamed to like seek help. I feel us, especially us Mexicans, we have this like stigma of like that if you talk to somebody about it, that you're automatically crazy or that you're off or something. You know what I mean?
And a lot of it is that we come from a culture where you keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Like you don't go outside.
And not even that. Like.
And also the machismo. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
sometimes
just suck it up. Just tough it out. Just don't think like that.
Don't
just
cry. Don't be a bitch.
You
know what I'm saying? And and I tell people, I was like, sometimes that's the worst thing that you can do. And you do need to talk about it, and you need to like let it out. That's why I tell Sean, and I'm pretty sure he's tired of hearing it, but I tell Sean all the time, like this shit here, this is probably one of the greatest ideas that I've actually thought of and put together, like this whole podcast thing, because throughout my whole anxiety, my depression, like a lot of people don't understand, like this has actually been my therapy, and it's free. Do y'all know how much a fucking psychologist fucking costs?
So, with insurance that I pay, let me tell y'all, because I started going to see a therapist recently because it was just, with feeling overwhelmed and feeling, this whole grief thing, like what you were going through, I'm currently going through. Now I'm going to start trying to talk to somebody about it. But, I started seeing a therapist, and she's not even like, no shade to her. She's a nice lady, but she's a counselor, and I'm paying $45 out of pocket per session with insurance.
The
insurance, I pay more than I've ever paid in rent.
Yeah.
For insurance.
That $45 out of your pocket, let me tell you, that's cheap.
Really?
That's really cheap.
Oh, okay, now I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
I was like,
see,
whoa.
Look, what I see.
You don't want to see the number she's giving your insurance company.
Exactly. You're sure as hell you don't. But that's what I tell people. Look. I'm not here to shit on anybody. I'm really not. Look, if you go see because I know people that go see a therapist like week in, week out, 2 or 3 times a week, whatever. If that's working for you, by all means, like, go ahead and do it, and then that's awesome. All I'm saying is, when I went to go see a therapist, all I'm saying is, he didn't do a fucking thing for me. Like, she just told me everything that I already knew and everything that I was going through. So I was like, dude, I didn't tell her, right? But I was like, dude, like, I already know this. Like, this is not helping me to deal with this shit. You know what I mean? Maybe I was looking for answers in the wrong way, I guess, but it didn't work out. So the only reason as to why I say this is because if anybody is experiencing like anxiety, depression, or whatever, the best thing to do is
Write a song.
yeah, but not every. And not even I was gonna say that, but I know that everybody's gonna say, "Well, not everybody's artistic or whatever."
Then
But-
they can become SoundCloud rappers. No, I'm just
Yes. No.
There's the shade.
shout out to Icy Frank.
But no, what I was gonna say is, even if you don't have any artistic, even if you're not an artist, just write, just write anything, write it down. That'll help, and go to the gym. The gym helped me a lot. Running, just and for the assholes that wonder, because I've been asked. Yeah, I can run on an actual elliptical machine. Because I told that somebody at work, and they're like, after I
So
explained
that's
everything.
how your knee got fucked up.
No, what? their thing was, I gave them all that elaborate explanation on like my condition and shit, and their only reply was like, "So wait, you can actually run?" I was like, yes, asshole. Thank you for ignoring everything else I said. But yeah, on an elliptical machine, yes, I can. Anyway, run is what the fuck I'm saying. And that that also has proven to show that psychologically and medically, it does. There is a such thing as runner's high. And that actually releases actual
Like endorphins?
yeah, natural dopamine in your brain that is naturally produced, and that dopamine, for the people that don't know, is kind of like your happy drug. That
Is that where the term dope comes from?
Probably.
Dopamine.
probably,
Dope. Dope.
but yeah. So
If
talk
not, it's
about
one
it.
of those happy coincidences of Latin.
Probably as well, but yeah, talk about it. Talk about it. Write it down, and fucking run a little bit, and it really does help. All I'm saying is, the other way is never the way out, cause well, for us comics, we recently lost Brody, so that, but from
We weren't close personal friends.
no,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
motherfucker-
but just
yeah.
he was funny, and I just hate to see funny people go. So
Because
but-
it's so ironic. That's what's so. I guess that's what's the thing about it is that.
well, he
although
was
it's-
dealing with depression though, and he had abruptly come off his meds, and they're saying that that's how they figure that that's kind of what triggered.
That is always a possibility because I remember hearing.
You're off your meds.
No,
Please get the fuck on your meds. I don't want to.
I don't have meds, or at least mine are self-prescribed. Why is this in your handwriting? Okay, but yeah, that's a frequently repeated story. Is people making a transition from one mood stabilizer to another one, and then having that gap in between cause them some issue.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Talking about utilizing mental health care. Part of the problem is I think 90% of people wouldn't be able to tell you what you need a psychiatrist. What's the other one?
Psychologist.
Psychologist. I think the psychologist is the one that'll talk to you.
And that's another thing. That's something I did learn from this whole fucking psychiatric.
All right, so break
Shit.
it down for us.
One of them can give you
Explain
drugs.
it like I'm 5.
I learned that there is a difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. First of all, don't ever call a psychiatrist a psychologist, and vice versa. Don't ever do that. Yeah, fuck up for a friendship real quick. And secondly, one is one's for medical, and the other one's more for like what you were saying, counseling. And forgive me.
I think a
if, like,
psychologist will talk to you. A psychiatrist will give you
psychiatrist
substances.
will give you. If you're really looking for drugs, the psychiatrist is the one that you want to see.
That's the thing. Not everybody needs drugs. Like some people, like genuinely, go to the gym, get a fucking hobby.
Yeah.
Try to encourage social interaction of some sort.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes they need a little, medication for the brain in some fashion or another, and that was my understanding with Brody Stevens that was a lifelong thing for him. So.
Yeah. Now, this is the other thing. Like, and again, in this whole PC thing, I always do feel like I have to throw disclaimers out. If you're on medications, if you're on antidepressants, and that shit's working for you, I repeat, I am not telling you to get off. But if you've never been on an antidepressant, and I'm not a professional, I'm nothing of that fucking sort. I'm not even smart.
You don't say.
Yeah, I'm not even smart. But if you've never been on an antidepressant, I would strongly recommend, not unless you have like a very severe case, but I would strongly recommend to try every other alternative before you seek something that will chemically alter your brain and mood, because it's very, seek for natural shit first. And by natural, I'm not saying other drugs or anything like that. I'm just saying,
Don't see the Salvador first.
yeah, don't do that shit. I'm talking about go to the gym, find a hobby, write, draw, sing, play an instrument, play with yourself. Hey, it's been scientifically proven as well that if you play with yourself
Endorphins.
for about 10 to 15 seconds, you relieve anxiety. That there's science behind that. So, and plus you get this glow. Well, the glow is more for women, but yeah.
I think that's why I look so dull.
But yeah, anyway, yeah, seek normal and natural ways first. If you feel that shit is not working out for you, and those are the psychologists that I do respect. The ones that will tell you, they give you alternative methods first, like try this, and then you go back. If none of that shit works, and then you seek professional help, and you've tried what they're asking you to do, then yes, seek a prescription of some shit. Because a lot of the times, like those shits, like sometimes they give you worse fucking side effects than the fucking shit that they're curing. So
Let's be honest. A lot of the problem is like it's people not being able to be self-aware of their own actions. They don't know when they're, say, going into some sort of either psychopathy or some just sort of disassociative way of interacting. So, like, if you're asking them to describe what it is they're experiencing that they're having a problem with, like, and then just going like, well, they all said they felt a little bit, groggy. Let's give them this substance. Like,
yeah.
It's not an exact science. It's not like they run you through a blood test and go like, you need, Zoprifalol or whatever the fuck the latest craze is. It's not that. Like, yeah, it's some people get lucky and like one or some of the first substances they try them on work, or some people get unlucky and some of the first substances they try them on, cause them to go into, violent hyperphagia or some weird side effect that causes extreme discomfort,
Yeah.
and probably a further lack of trust in wanting to take any
Other-
future substances.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm also saying that because I experienced it when I initially went through everything with my mom, and it's kind of crazy that at least now, almost 2 years later, I can actually talk about it, because before I couldn't even talk about it. But when I initially went through it, when I first had my very first panic attack episode, I'd never experienced that shit in my whole life ever. Like, I had never experienced anxiety, depression, panics, or anything. And I was telling Sean, we actually talked about it on one of the episodes where I felt like I was fucking having a heart attack, right? So, a side note, because I told Sean too, on like, this is how you know that the healthcare industry in this country is fucked up. I was going through this like panic attack, right? And I was like, holy shit, and my heart started racing, and I was like, I can't breathe. I'm feeling flushed, and I started looking up symptoms for a heart attack. And every fucking thing that I read, I felt I had, which that's horrible. But anyway, I was like, holy shit.
WebMD syndrome.
I'm having a heart attack. So I go to pick up my phone, and I was going to dial 911 to call for an ambulance. I was here, right?
He actually called 199.
No. I was, and this is a true story. I was about to dial 911, and then I was like, I was going to dial it, and I was like, holy shit, I don't think my insurance covers emergency room visits or ambulance. I can't afford that. Fuck that. So I didn't call 911. I actually got in my car and I drove myself to the emergency room. And I get there and I go to the front or whatever. And I told the nurse, I was like, can I see a nurse? Can I see a doctor? Whatever. I was talking really fast, and then he was like, oh, what's wrong? And I was like, let me just, are you a nurse? He was like, yeah. I was like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And he looked me in the face and he's like, can you tell me what you feel? And I was like, well, my face is going numb. I'm flushed. I feel I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And he was looking at me, right? And then this is how the nurse pissed me off, because
People perpetually pissing off Freddy G.
Yeah. He looked at me and he said, and I quote, I'm panicking and shit, right? This dude looked me straight in the face and he said, you're fine. Just breathe. I'm going to go get you some water. And I was like, dude, I'm not fine. And this doesn't feel right. He got up and he left to the back. And I was like, dude, come back. And I went to the guy that was next to him. And I was like, dude, I don't feel good. And he looked at me. He's like, he went to go get you some water. Relax. He came back, gave me the water, and he was like, drink. And then he's like, you're going to be fine. And then he told me, just breathe. That's what got me mad. He looked me in the face. He was like, all you got to do is breathe. Just breathe. And then I was like, no, I don't feel well. I'm about to pass out. And he looked me in the face and he's like, you're going to be fine. Just breathe. And he was getting me more upset. And he saw that I was getting more upset. And he told me, he was like, would it make you more comfortable if I take you to the back? And I was like, yes. So he took me to the back to the little room. He hooked me up to like a heart monitor. And he was like, look, your heart rate is just above 100. And then that's when he told me, if you were having a heart attack, your rate would be somewhere in the 180s, 190s. And he told me again, you're fine. Just breathe. But for whatever reason, once he hooked me up to the machine and I kept looking at the heart rate, like I was able to like calm down or whatever. Again, to my own fucking defense, I had never experienced a panic attack or an anxiety attack.
And if you've never experienced one and you have no idea what to expect when you're having one, it's totally rational to think that you're having a heart attack.
Yeah, because you feel it. You feel that your chest gets tight.
It's very physical. People think it's all in your head. It's all in your head. Just think positive. But literally, like, you feel your mouth going numb. Yeah. You feel tingling sensations. You feel your arm. Like,
cotton mouth, and I wasn't even high, and I was like, what the fuck?
You feel like you're on a bad trip.
Yeah.
Feel that's what it essentially feels like.
Yeah,
and you're like, I didn't take anything.
So my
Which just goes to show you that your psychology can override your like physiology.
Exactly. So my whole point to that fucking story was that when I left, this is why, like, I'm real iffy about all that shit, because before I left, this dude they asked me all these questions. They're like, "Have you experienced any life altering moments?" Like, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, anything that has drastically changed your mind and shit like that. I mean, changed your life recently or whatever." And I told him, I was like, "Yeah, my mom just passed." And he was like, "How long ago?" And I was like 2 months ago or whatever. And he's like, "Oh," so he's like, "You're gonna be fine or whatever." But that's all he asked, like any life changing experiences, whatever. And the next thing is, they gave me a prescription. So I know you're supposed to trust doctors; they know what they're doing and stuff like that. I get it, but I don't trust anybody. That's the whole thing about it.
Do you remember what the prescription
So
was?
that's what I was gonna say. I looked at the prescription. I don't remember the name. No, I'm not even gonna try. I don't remember the name, but I googled it, and then I found out that they were antidepressants. And I was like, dude, like and then I started looking at the side effects, at the possible side effects, and I was like, nah, I'm fine. And then I kept remembering the whole time what the guy at the emergency room was telling me, just to breathe. And I was looking at the prescription, and I was like, no, breathing sounds
I'm
easier.
just gonna breathe.
Yeah, breathing
It's a
sounds
lot
way
cheaper.
easier.
The air is free.
Yeah. So yeah. Ever since then,
I'm surprised they didn't send your ass home with some what do you call it?
maybe if you name it, I can tell you if it was that.
Oh shit!
It was something with an X. I know that much.
Xanax.
No, it was.
Oh
not
no,
Xanax.
I was thinking fake pills. What's that called?
Sugar.
Yeah.
Placebos.
Placebo.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. No, those were actual like antidepressants or whatever.
Because clearly they were running like the whole question. You know, have you had any life changing events? They have some kind of protocol for people who come in having panic attacks and thinking that their heart is about
their
to
first
explode.
question were, "Are you on any kind of drugs?" That was their first fucking question. No, for real. Like he was like, "Have you been taking any kind of drugs?"
To be fair, Freddie, that was the first question I asked you too. So
yeah, he did. It was like, "Are you on any kind of drugs?" And I was like, "What you mean legally?" Or I mean, no, but yeah, the dude he was like, "Are you on any kind of drugs?" And then I was like, "No." And he literally, no joke, he looked at me and he was like, "Okay, I need you to be completely honest." This is what he said. He was like, after I had said no the first time, uh, he was like, "Okay, I need you to be completely honest with me. If whatever he closed the door and he was like, whatever you admit here, I promise you won't get in trouble. But I need you to be honest." And I was like, "No, bro, I don't do any drugs." And then I looked at him, he looked at me, and I was like, I was born this way." And then he was like, "Oh, all right, well, we're gonna run some blood tests," and then he went and he ran the blood test or whatever. And then that's when they fucking started asking me, like, if the life changing experience or shit like that. So, but their first question was, yeah, drugs. Like, do you do any cocaine or any? I was hoping at some point he'd be like, "Would you like any of the drugs?"
Yeah.
Would be like morphine, re-up on that shit.
Might have been a lot less effective if you just walked in the room and like sat down and were like, "So how long have you been a little bitch?"
Yeah, no. But yeah, and I'd like to say that throughout this whole 2 years, because I've been dealing with depression and the anxiety for 2 years now.
That's it. Only 2 years.
Yeah, whatever. I've only
Set
experienced
like a life longer.
Yeah.
2 years. Shit, I got my.
So like with me, I'm proud to say that I've been able to manage it with nothing, just regular.
Just running on the elliptical.
Yeah. Just that.
The look on your face when I said that just tells me you're not really running on the elliptical.
I am just
but the
not
thought
the
of
way
running
that
on the
I
elliptical.
He's thinking about, and you know what? That's the thought that counts, right? It's the thought that counts.
Sometimes. Sometimes it does. But yeah, it's no bullshit. All jokes aside, again, for me, maybe like I said, maybe it doesn't work for a lot of people at home or people listening. But dude, that runner's high is real. Like when you get off after being on that shit for about an hour, you literally feel like you don't give a fuck, and that like nothing hurts you, and you feel happy. I genuinely feel like it's like a mood changer. I feel good, like, and then I do it in the mornings. So, well, when I do go ahead and do it, I do it in the mornings before work. So, like, I go into work and like in a happy mood. I mean, I'm not saying my fucking mood doesn't change when I walk into work, but 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 at
You
least
be rolling up like 1738.
yeah. But but yeah, that initial high, because now I know that it's just really runner's high. When you get off the elliptical, like first of all, you can breathe. Like I don't know about you, but I like taking deep breaths, and sometimes I can't. And I breathe and everything, and that initial shit when you get off, is like holy shit. You really do feel like you can take on the world and shit. Reminds me of those episodes of Pinky and the Brain.
But are you also familiar with the studies that have shown that the dopamine response in the brain to eating bread is the same as it is for heroin?
Oh shit!
What?
I may be getting that study wrong or using a little
Is
bit
that
of
why I
hyperbole.
eat so
Hold
much
on.
bread?
But
No,
you got to admit, there's a bit of a just
that actually
response.
makes sense.
I
Wait,
eat
wait,
so
be-
much bread when I'm lesson planning.
Before, well, I think you're going in a different direction. But I think I make the correlation with what you're saying because let me make sure I get it straight first. You're saying is when you eat a shitload of bread, that after feeling that you feel just is the same effect of like.
Well,
when-
that's more of a blood sugar response.
Oh, I thought that's what
But
you
is
meant.
it like it hits your brain with that like euphoric?
Like, I think it had to do with the addictive property.
Oh no. Well,
I'm addicted to bread. My strange addiction. I'm addicted to conchas.
you might want to.
Just to put the warning sticker on it, I'm one of those non-gluten eating motherfuckers, so I may just be trying to make the world as miserable as I am. That's just out here feeding false bread propaganda.
You cannot be my friend and not eat bread.
he
How
lit-
is? Oh my
he
god!
literally.
It took a
Can't
long
eat
time for
bread.
me to become my own friend again after that. I was having dreams where I'd wake up in the middle of a rye sandwich and just like, where'd it go? Where'd it go? And yeah.
I'm actually trying
I'd just
to
be
lay
standing
off the fucking-
outside of a
the
Schlotsky's
bread.
with my hand on the window, just like sad music playing in my head. Just no.
I hear so much about how carbs are bad for us. How bread is bad for us. Like that whole book Wheat Belly. How all of these issues, these dietary nutritional issues that we have, relates to the fact that bread should not be in our diet. But
Well,
it's just
it's an
how do you take it?
overuse.
How do you take? I don't know.
It's
And I wonder. You
I-
know, my
I-
stomach hurts all the time.
I
because
feel
eat
you,
so much
like
bread.
like I feel completely what you're saying because I used to feel like you because everything that I ate contained some kind of like bread or whatever. But I actually clean ate for 3 months, 90 days straight. All I ate was red meat, chicken, and fish with a spoon. And first of all, I lost the
Did the
shit.
spoon make a difference?
What do you mean?
I mean, if it'd been
He
a
like
fork.
really emphasized the
Oh,
spoon
well,
part.
my bad.
with the
Spoon, fork,
spoon.
shit. Y'all know what the fuck I mean.
If I went
um,
spork, would it just be too much?
Do chopsticks work?
Nice observation there.
You're asking the real questions.
So yeah, for 90 days, just fucking ate with like but it was no bread, no tortilla, and no Coke. And first of all, I lost 19 and a half pounds. First of all, and secondly, dude, those were some of the most odorless shits I've ever taken. I actually enjoyed taking a shit that didn't smell like shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in there and I was like, I can breathe and it's
But that's
fine.
funny because I remember the South Park episode where everybody was eating healthy and like the shits were like horrendous. Like Mr. Hanky was like, I'm dying.
No,
Well, I think it depends on what
was-
you're eating.
And the other thing is that I would eat, and I would eat a lot. Like I would eat like a fucking 12-ounce steak and shit like that because I was just eating meat. It was just like meat and fish and chicken. Like that's literally all I was eating. Because I don't even think I remember eating rice at that because it's still carbs. So I wasn't even eating rice. So after eating, I didn't feel that feeling that like. I didn't feel like that feeling that you get that you're like fuck, and then you start getting sleepy. No, I was like holy shit, like this feels good, like, and I had more energy and shit like that. So my point to that was to what you're saying. Like I thought that I couldn't. I know this is drastically saying, but I literally felt like I couldn't live without eating bread. Like I had to have it. But the fact of the matter is that you can go your whole life without eating bread and you'll be fine. And not only will you be fine, but you'll be healthier. Like way healthier. Now the downside to that is that you can't really eat meat every day for the rest of your life. A lot of people don't believe
Se
that.
te sube el colesterol.
Yeah, but also the help me out, Sean, because I can't pronounce it.
You got to have a little bit of roughage in there because the bacteria that break down the meat in your system, the metabolites they produce are, I think, inflammatory in some fashion.
So
there has to be...
that produces, and this is what I need you to help me out with. I can't pronounce it. Acetic acid. Is that how you say it?
I think acidic means acid.
What's the it's fucking shit.
Acetaminophen? Like
No.
Tylenol?
No, there's a fucking word that it's basically acid, but that acid gets produced in your blood, and then if you get fucking
Acidosis?
no, it's acidim. I can't fucking pronounce it.
It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
people are coming to us as their source of high
Health,
end,
yeah.
Just WebMD this and just...
Anyway,
yeah, we should not be your primary source.
It causes an acid in your blood, and that acid, when it gets to be too much, and this is only from red meat. So that
This
acid,
is where that whole thing about red meat being carcinogenic comes from, because it can irritate the colon and everything all up and down the digestive tract.
yeah.
That's why you need to have like a little bit of
greens and
greens,
fiber, and
some
shit
fruit,
like that.
something like that.
Some fruits and shit like that.
Because you're
Because
basically feeding the bacteria in your gut so they can produce other stuff that, one, you can intake as nutrients, and two, counteract the other crap that's going on in the digestive process.
yeah, and this is why I would like to bring a professional nutritionist on the podcast, because I have an idea.
I was about to say that I have learned more about nutrition from this talk than I have learned in any class that I ever took.
Again, that disclaimer was for you too. Don't use us as your primary source for nutrition. This is just shit that I've read online.
WebMD.
No, other. I use I can't pronounce it either. The Mayo Clinic.
The Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Clinic.
Like the generic WebMD.
Basically. But it's because they also post shit from Harvard there. So I'm guessing if it's a top Ivy League school.
I came across one of the dumbest fucking articles a while back where it was talking about PC being brought into like important shit about culture. It was basically written about overweight people, like anywhere from mildly overweight to morbidly obese, that were mad because every time they'd go into their doctor's office, their doctor would tell them to lose weight. Like it just immediately like, well, you should probably lose some weight. And like they were just like, I have real problems. And it's like, yeah, a lot of that might actually be helped if you lived a healthier life. Like, I mean, that's granted if like you're like, yeah, doc, I'm taking all those steps. Like, what else should I be doing? But like, if it's like, are you trying to lose weight? And it's like, well, no, but I still got problems. It's like, well, go try. You know, show some effort. You know what I mean?
Another thing that I also read, but on this I don't know how true it is because I think even the source that I read it from, it's not too trustworthy. But it kind of hit me in the face, and keep in mind I'm a meat eater. That I'm a carnivore when it comes to that shit. I will not stop eating meat no matter what the fuck you tell me. But they were saying that they found links to people that have high consumption of meat, like myself, also can cause severe depression. So, but then see, but even that, I think about it and I was like, no, depression started later. I was already eating meat. I was trying to convince myself that it wasn't that.
That's such an interesting.
I don't know how true that is though.
I'm gonna have to Snopes that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's
What
the thing. There have been a
fuck
couple.
is Snow?
There have been a couple studies that have tied meat or large, like predominant meat consumption to risky behavior because of the fact that we have the culture of kind of like, you know, vegetarianism and like, you know, don't eat as much meat because it might cause colon cancer. So like the person that's eating a shitload of like steak is probably also smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol and yada yada, taking risky chances in life.
But if I'm not mistaken, like that article was saying that it was because those are some of the factors too. But
because I mean I'm eating meat, smoking cigarettes, and also depressed. So I mean they're probably just talking about me.
Yes, but no, what they were saying was that they did found links that supposedly solely come from like their triggers in depression that come from like eating like red meat or whatever. And I mean, I'm telling you, maybe it's a lot of that is not credible because I would be really pissed off if a fucking vegetarian wrote that article. So yeah, I need somebody that fucking eats steak like I do to write some shit, and then I might believe it.
Well, somebody with credibility.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name? Brock Lesnar. What was it? 4 or 5 years back when he got the diverticulitis, and it was all because his colon. I mean, his small intestine had just been like packed full of like he was eating like, you know, red meat on a regular basis with no fucking, you know, vegetable intake or fruit or fiber of any sort.
He took a modest proposal too literally, and he started actually eating Irish babies.
They're so buttery.
They feed 4. They feed a family of 4.
That's funny.
It's only if you're using French portions.
Yeah.
We're Americans, maybe it'll feed 2.
If you're lucky.
God help you if you serve it with mayonnaise.
But no, but then you were saying, and then what happened?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that was kind of like, he even came out and was saying in interviews, it's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have been eating this, like, highly carnivorous diet because, you know, along with a bunch of other pre-existing factors, you know, steroids, yeah, he was predisposing himself to having problems. And, yeah, I mean, all right, look, are there some people for whom maybe primarily are, you know, exclusively carnivorous diets maybe the way to go? Probably. Are there people who can do like a strict vegan diet and also...
I would never be able to do that shit.
Me neither. Something needs to die for my dinner.
Yeah.
That's more of a spiritual thing, but
like
whatever.
Fuck all that. Like I've thought about it. I was like, okay, what if I take like every meat substance out of my diet? I can figure that out. But then when they told me you can't drink milk, you can't have this because it's still from a fucking animal.
Cow or from, yeah.
And then I started thinking, wait a minute, fucker. Like everything comes from a fucking animal. And then they got really technical with me. It was like, well, if you eat this, it's technically... And then I found out, and again, I don't know how true that is, but I found out that like then you could eat some like plant-based protein. But then they said, and again, this is from an article. And I don't know if they were joking or not, but they said that that still like that plant didn't count because that plant only grows when like cows shit on the ground and then they need that as fertilizer. So technically, it's still from a fucking animal.
Wow,
So
this
I
is pretty
It's almost like
technical.
life's
Yeah.
a circle.
But you
Yeah.
know
I feel
what?
there's a song
I just
about
had this
this.
realization when I put my hand on my head because that's how great ideas happen.
Pretty
in
much.
thinking pose. How you were mentioning how there's this connection between red meat and depression, and it made me think about when I was teaching at this awesome summer academy at Bard, and I had a student who was from, I want to say she was from Yemen, and she would only eat halal because every time
What
that we
was
went
that?
to eat at every
Is
time
that
we ate in the
lamb?
dining hall, she could only eat halal. So halal is kind of like the
Islamic
the
version
Islamic
of kosher.
version of kosher. Like it has to be certified that it is, okay to
That
eat.
that
They
shit
can't
just
eat
sounds
pork. They can't eat.
expensive to me. It's what the fuck that sounds.
It's
It is.
delicious.
And
Is
on one
it?
hand, it is very
It
expensive.
is like
but
when you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm 100%.
But what is it though?
So the animal has to be killed in a humane way because they have this belief that if the animal suffered when it was dying,
Oh
then that
yeah.
suffering gets passed on to you when you consume it.
Yeah.
And so in a way, like that connection between the red meat and how we just kind of like slaughter our animals, like, oh, whatever, we put them on that thing. Have you read Fast Food Nation? That's like a really good book. That they stun them and then they chop them up, but sometimes the stun doesn't go through, and so they suffer all the way through. And so
I'm laughing because you
and
just
so then
reminded
it goes
me.
into us.
I'm laughing because you just reminded me of this fucking hilarious bit that Cat Williams used to run. He was like, then they have these fucking fucked up diseases. They're completely fucked me up because it's like this mad cow disease, which completely fucked me up because I didn't even know cows had feelings like that. I mean, I don't know what the fuck. I don't care what the cow feel like. I just want a number 7, bitch. Is all I want. So that shit was funny. Going back to like the feelings of the
Yep.
animals and shit.
The hormones. I mean, that's long been
Oh,
known.
that's the other thing. Thank you for reminding me. Back to the depression fucking thing in the red meat. It said something about that. That because there's a lot of meat that has been processed and has been like artificially injected
Tons of antibiotics.
with that and
Yep.
hormones and shit, that because we like consume the hormones, it fucks with the chemical imbalance in your brain.
Another
So-
book, I think it's called Our Stolen Future, also talks about that, how the hormones in our cells, the hormones fit in kind of like a key. They're shaped sort of like a triangle. At least that's what I got from the diagrams. I'm really bad at reading directions and understanding that stuff. My spatial reasoning is not
So,
very
sounds like you have ADD,
apt.
but continue.
So, by consuming these animals that have been injected with these chemicals, these synthetic hormones,
Yeah.
they fit into our cells the same way that an estrogen cell or hormone would, and so it fucks up our whole system, and it leads to cancers. It leads to all these like health issues. It leads to women having uteruses that look like deflated balloons, like those weird bouncy balloons, those long ones. Yeah, like really weird, abnormal issues, infertility, etc.
Yeah.
All from this, from these
I
hormones.
see not now because I'm glad that you're reminding me of that shit because like my whole fucking thing that I was trying to explain, kind of would have not made as much sense. But with the hormone thing and now with what you're saying, now that I think about it more, it kind of does make sense because I think that if you were to do anything or take anything that even remotely fucks with like your hormones or your chemical balance or anything, I do believe that it will like alter your chemical balance in some kind of way, and then the chemical balance, you know, fucks with your whole brain shit, and see, that makes sense. But now I'm not saying that I strongly 100% believe that meat is connected with depression and all that. But all I'm saying is that if it does, it makes sense. I'm not gonna stop eating meat though. I'll be sad than a motherfucker. But for those couple of spoonfuls and shit,
The burger is so good.
it's so good. It's so good. It makes me cry. It's delicious.
And there is that subtle irony of the fact that the reason the species has survived as long as it has is our ability to eat almost anything. So if it's like, what's killing us? Food. It's
Pretty
like,
much.
something's wrong a little bit farther up the line than just, hey, get some different food.
Oh, and the other thing, going back to what you're saying about the bread thing. If you don't eat bread, like, then your liver, and I think even your kidneys, they start to detoxify. Is that the fucking word you like? Where
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
okay, is that the word?
Well, not just that.
I don't want to
but
be
it's-
making up words and shit. Well,
All right. Well, an obvious byproduct of eating a shitload of carbohydrates is you gain body fat, and body fat there's a theory that I have not read too deeply into, but it's fascinating that one of the roles of human body fat might be to isolate toxins in the body. So, like, a lot of people talk about when they lose weight, they start feeling like ill. Like once they're like, say, ketogenesis or something like that, where your body starts using its own fat resources as fuel.
Mm-hmm.
It starts unlocking a lot of these toxins that have been kind of stuck in there. So that's a real thing.
Maybe that's why I was so miserable when I tried that.
Try what?
Yeah, they.
I was miserable. I mean, I was ready to claw people's eyes out.
Yeah, but that makes sense what he's saying, because you're getting you're basically altering your whole system on your own by depriving your system of things that it was used to.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime that you're taking out of your element of anything,
like going cold turkey from a heroin addiction, you're gonna go through withdrawal, like your body.
Well, I mean, I never did heroin, but I went.
Actually, it's a little
I've
bit.
seen a lot of TV shows.
I watched that docudrama, but it gets a little farther than that because your gut bacteria also dictates a lot of your hunger response, as well as there are more neurons in your gut and intestine than there are in your brain. So you're getting feedback from your gut bacteria in real time as you're consuming things. That's it. I believe they've only been doing those studies for the past 10 or 15 years, but yeah, it's really fascinating, the interaction between the gut and, say, our temperament and mood and all that shit. But if your gut bacteria is, say, primarily sugar eating, and all of a sudden you switch over to something else, that's a lot of pissed off bacteria. Now, I don't know the exact biological process before how they might express that anger, let's say. Let's just say there's a couple billion beings now in your body that are not getting what they want, and they want you to know about it. So thus trying to claw people's eyes out, and the general feeling of, fuck yeah, I've been there. Solidarity all the way on that one. Actually, I can't even, I can eat potato chips, but it's one of those things where it's like, as it's going in the mouth, it's like, I'm going to pay for this later.
Yeah.
And I still do it because it's just, the addiction is strong. The hooks are in there.
It's like me. I have well, I mean, I thank God that I don't like it anyway, but I have an allergic reaction to pork. The only thing is,
baby back ribs are delicious.
Yeah, well, what I was the last time I had baby back ribs, I literally ended up in the emergency room.
Jesus.
Yeah. No real shit. I only had a half a rack, and that's all I ate. just because it was, I felt it was
And
a
so,
lot.
what does it do? What kind of
Well,
response does it
well,
trigger in your body?
the when I went that time to the emergency room, I went because first of all, before I did this, I had never experienced ever in my life high blood pressure, right? So I didn't even know what that was or how it worked or what you felt. But what I felt was I ate the whole thing and immediately, I want to say literally like 5 minutes later, I got really pale. I got white. My wife at the time told me, she was like, dude, what's wrong? Like, what's going? And I was like, why? And then she was like, because you're white. Like if you got scared or some shit. And I was like, I don't know. And what I felt was that blood kept rushing from my head down to the tip of my toes, and then it would come back up, and it would stay right here, and then my stomach felt boiling hot, like boiling hot. So then, as soon as I described that to her, she was like, "It sounds like it's your blood pressure." And, well, she's a nurse, right? So we went to the car. She had her cuff there. She checked it, and yeah, my blood pressure had instantly shot up to, I think it was one. I don't know if you know how to read readings, but your normal human being normal pressure should be 120 over 80. That's perfect. None of us have it at that, just so you know. It's normally 130,
Mine's
125.
usually like 90 over 60.
That's still normal. It's a little low,
That's
but
like near death, but it's
no,
okay.
no, it's no. You're fine. That's still normal.
Just taking it easy.
Yeah, but 120 over 80 is ideal. Mine had shot up to 190 over 110, I think. And then she was like, "Dude, you have two options right now. Either I give you some of my uh, high blood pressure medication, which I'm not sure how good it's gonna work because you've never taken it, or you want to go to the emergency room." And I was like, fuck that, let's go to the. Because I felt really bad. I literally felt like my heart was going to stop. But I wasn't panicking. I was fine. I just felt really shitty inside. But like my heart was racing. Oh, and that my heart rate was at 120. So just like, we can take you to the emergency room, or you can take these pills and wait it out. But I don't know how well that's gonna work. So we went to the emergency room, and the doctor said that if she would have waited, I think if we would have waited 15 to 20 minutes longer, that my heart would have stopped because it. Oh, and then when I got to the hospital, they took me into the emergency room. They couldn't get my blood pressure to come down, so they gave me some shit that you put like under your tongue because it's supposed to work faster. And they did that, and then they were like, we'll be back in like 15 20 minutes. They came back and it had dropped none. So they were like, I'm gonna give you some more. So he gave me more. Waited 15 minutes because it was like it should come down by then. Came back, it only came down like 10 points. And they're like, dude, you're still very critical. And because I told them, I asked the doctor, I was like, dude, because again, I had never experienced it before. I was like, what's the worst that I feel like shit, but what's the worst that could happen if that shit? Because I kept looking at the monitor. If that shit doesn't come down, what's the worst that could happen? And he's like, well, I don't know how to make it sound in a nice way, but if we don't get it to come down within the next 30 minutes to an hour, you're just gonna stroke out. And then like that's when the fuck I panicked. And then he saw my heart rate go up again, and he was like, dude, just chill out. I can't have you messing with your heart rate or whatever. You're gonna be fine. But he made it worse when he pulled my wife out, and I heard them when he told them, there's not much else he can do because like, if I give him another dose, it could drop his his blood pressure drastically, and then he'll still like pass out and be gone or whatever. And then my wife was like, well then what do we do? And he literally just said we have to wait it out. He's like, it's either eventually. He literally said he said we have to wait it out. So, but by him saying that, he was just saying we'll wait it out to see if it comes down, or we'll wait out until he strokes out, and then we'll take it from there. Because according to him, the way he was explaining it, they couldn't do anything else until, as crazy as it may sound, they couldn't do anything else until like actually like stroked out or whatever. So I don't know how the fuck that works, but anyway,
Our grade A American medical system. There you have it, folks.
there you go. So
So can you eat Jello?
as far
Good
as
question.
I know,
Because it's made from like
let
the bone marrow of pork.
let me finish. So that's what I was gonna say. So I could have pork. I don't like it to begin with, so it's fine. I could have pork. Like the only pork I can kind of stomach and I still can't is pepperoni. Like I can have pepperoni, but if I have pepperoni, I'll have the shits for the rest of the day, like until like the next morning or whatever. So, which is the risk I take every time that I have
So
pizza.
possibly
or-
cured pork. It's got to be. That's because the problem would be the proteins. So if the protein is broken down by some sort of fermentation, then
Yeah.
you might have an easier time with it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what happened when I had half rack of baby back ribs. By the way,
Mhm.
they were delicious.
Yeah,
Do
you regret nothing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do. I regret it. No, I really don't. They were fucking. They had this like Memphis rub on them. Shit. That's all it was.
Like, I love Texas barbecue, but these motherfuckers need to learn the joy of mustard powder. That's all I'm gonna say.
I
What
like.
would you put mustard powder on? Because I've never heard of mustard powder, and my husband's like a cooking connoisseur.
I kind of like that tangy taste when you're doing. It made my mouth water. When you're doing lamb ribs on the grill, I kind of like it. Other than that, I don't really like it on anything else.
There's a little bit of a difference between the mustard sauce and doing like a dry rub.
No. That's what I'm talking about. The dry rub
Okay.
on the ribs.
Okay.
On the dry mustard rub. And there is a difference when you're doing the dry rub to when you're doing the actual like. I like to call it the spread.
Personally, I like to mix and match some red pepper and the mustard, and then maybe some honey and. Sorry,
Fuck
what were we
me,
talking about?
I'm getting hungry. So what the fuck? I was hungry to begin with. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
so there's all
that's-
of that, and you're trying to shape impressionable young minds.
well, that's what your job description says. But
That's what my goal was.
Okay.
Forever
No,
will
no.
be.
Understandable. We all get into stuff for honest means, and then we just waylaid along the path.
I was like that renegade teacher that was like, I had terrible teachers in school, and I'm gonna do this so much better than them. And according to like TEA, and according to data, and according to papers, I am hitting it out of the park. But on a very personal level, I had no idea like how emotionally and even physically draining this job is. I mean,
I could have told you that shit.
You see all ends of the spectrum. You put your whole heart, your whole soul, your whole everything into this, and at the end of the day, it's they take it, they leave it.
Yeah. Teaching, and not to minimize what you do at all. I'm not trying to do that, but I was gonna say, teaching is a lot like comedy, in the sense that I tell everybody, dude, if you want to try comedy and if you want to do comedy, fine. But I would advise, comedy is something that you have to do because you actually love to do it. If you're looking for that quick buck, you're not gonna find it doing
No
this
way.
guaranteed. You have to do it because you genuinely are an asshole that likes to make people laugh. It's the best way that
You
I
have
could.
you kind of
put
have
it.
to be a little bit of a sadist
Yeah.
to be a teacher
Yeah.
or to be a
So
comedian.
so that's what I was gonna say. With yours, it's the same thing. First of all, I do want to go on record and say again, I've said this before. Teachers do not get paid enough. I strongly believe. I strongly believe teachers do not get paid enough. Teachers and police officers do not get paid. But I do want to say this very. I want to be clear about this. Teachers do not get paid enough, and real police officers don't get paid enough.
Well,
Not
I
the
think
ones
that's a
that
very
shoot-
similar conversation. It's there are enough bad police officers and bad school teachers that like you can almost justify. It's like, we don't want to give them more money, and it's like, no. Some of them are actually doing a good job. I've seen them. They're out there. They're trying.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing that I would argue, I mean, I make enough to pay my bills. We're a single income earning family.
But let me tell you something, and I'm telling you.
Let him
because-
tell you about your life existence.
No, no. What I'm going with what that you're saying, because of what you said right now. You said you make enough to pay your bills. That's what you said.
I'm making like I'm happy for the most part.
That-
It really does give me like a sense of purpose.
But what I'm saying is, I feel you shouldn't have to say that. What I'm saying is, I feel you shouldn't have to say I make enough to pay my bills. Why? Because I don't know about now, but at least when I was growing up, they sold teacher. They sold you being a teacher as a career. So I feel that it should be a career. And I feel that if it is a career, you should be paid enough for it to be an actual real career where you earn more than just paying your bills. You should be able to take a fucking vacation if you really wanted to.
And so, and that kind of goes back to like the point I was trying to make is that the only thing I would argue for is that if I got paid for the hours that I actually put into this, man, I'd be rolling in it. Like I wouldn't have to worry about my bills,
But they would
We don't
never
get
want to
paid
pay
for-
you
for
hourly. You know what I'm saying?
analyzing data for 6 hours on a Saturday. We don't get paid for staying until 9 o'clock at night, grading papers and organizing our classrooms and getting, engaging lesson plans ready and set up. That takes so much time and effort to be able to connect lessons that have been taught for like 50 years with something very relevant, like being able to connect Othello with Mean Girls. You have to be able to put in the time and like find the specific nuances that you can point to and connect it back to that teak that your lesson plan needs to have in there for your principal to say, okay, I can justify you showing Mean Girls because it does tie into Othello. And all of that takes an incredible amount of time. And if I was just paid that overtime that I really do put in,
Yeah.
it would make my life
Yeah.
significantly
And
easier.
I honestly feel that the teachers deserve it, because I always relate this back. I like what you just said. You always want to relate it to something that's relevant to you or to whoever you're talking to or whatever. Like I think a lot back of like the miserable, obnoxious little fuck that I was as a kid. And I just think now, like, if you had to deal with 20 fuckers that were like me, I feel sorry for you. You know what I'm saying?
It's
And
not 20
I-
anymore. It's 30 now.
There
We
you
have
go.
classrooms
There-
of 30 kids.
There
And that's
you
another
go.
thing is like back in the day when they were selling teacher as this career, and it very much still is and very much still could be. But I think the reason why we're seeing so many people burn out so early into it, like the lifespan of a lot of teachers, of millennials who are becoming teachers is about 5 years.
It's looking
Because
about like the
it's
NFL
just
at this point.
Yeah.
It's such an intense.
Yeah.
You're coming into such intensity, and it's nonstop. It's 24/7. answering phone calls at midnight about, why does my son have a 50? And having to open up your grade book and be like, I don't know, I don't have my glasses on right now.
That's something that I've also been against. Because, I mean, when I was growing up, they didn't have that shit. So something that I'm also against is when I found out that parents were allowed or are now exchanging your personal number with like the teacher.
I remember it happening when I was in school, but it was a voluntary act. It was like
now you have to do it.
I don't remember my parents ever having any communication with my teachers, like
right?
ever, like throughout.
We
I
you know what we went to,
and my parents never knew.
We went to fucking, I don't know what it's called now. I'm sure you still have it. We went to fucking open house once a year, where
meet
it was meet
Still
the
a thing.
parent.
March 7th, Kathy Middle School parents. Don't forget.
Holy shit! You teach it. You teach it?
Don't tell me you went to Kathy too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Every person that I talked to from McAllen is like, I went to Kathy. Let me tell you something about my school. I'm just kidding. I'm just gonna say the Kathy you went to is not the Kathy that I know.
I bet. I went there the very first year that it fucking opened.
Oh my gosh! You know some of those teachers are still there.
Yeah.
Shout out to Miss Luna. Shout out to Mr. Navarro.
I just went. I want to say a year ago. No, maybe more. Maybe 2 years ago. I went. Just.
What were you doing there?
Because I went to. I wanted to go see.
Stalkers.
I wanted to go see see if my teachers were still there. So I go to the front office or whatever, and guess what? My 6th grade teacher in Lamar was the fucking principal there now.
Mr. Benford?
Yeah.
He was your 6th grade teacher?
My 6th grade... Hold on. Okay. It gets better. He was my 6th grade drama teacher. And when I saw him and I was like, dude, how the fuck did they make you the principal? Because I didn't learn shit in drama.
You were also Freddy G.
Yeah, he was my 6th grade drama teacher.
That's why. Did he remember you?
Yeah. Well, he wasn't gonna forget me. I guarantee you that.
That's wild.
Yeah. He didn't.
I'm gonna have to send them the link to this podcast now.
I don't think you want. Well, I don't think it matters anymore. But yeah,
make choices.
He didn't remember my name. He was kind of like, but I could tell that he remembered me, and I was like, Freddy, and he was like, that's right. What did he call me? I think he said son. He's like, how you been, son? I was like, I'm good. And I told him, I was like, I can see you're moving on up, huh? And he's like, yeah, I got my own office. So, I mean, it was cool. And I saw 2 of the teachers that I had from there, and I was like, fuck, they're old. But yeah, I mean, I didn't tell them that, but that's the first thing I thought. I'm not gonna say.
Well, middle school, just like the meme says, ages you in dog years.
I was gonna say part of the argument for paying teachers more should involve the idea that you want to give them enough where you have a little bit to keep extra, so that if you get to the point of like you feel the burnout coming, or there's the pressure gets to the point, maybe just the spark goes away and you're like, fuck it, I don't care about these little fuckers. You want that option to just go, okay, voluntarily remove yourself from that situation instead of being like, well, this is what I'm doing, this is my career, I have to do this. It's like, no, because if you're that deep in where it's like maybe your presence is being relied on to a point where shit revolves around your participation, you got to be able to step out of that gracefully without either A, burning yourself out, or B, burning the house down as you leave.
Yeah,
I was. Yeah.
This is when I first found out that something was like horribly wrong when it came to like teachers and shit. When I was working at T-Mobile, and I found out that I made more than a teacher working at T-Mobile, that made me like sad. I was like, now I understand why fucking kids are not learning anything at school.
Teachers also get paid way differently depending on where you're teaching.
Yeah,
Like
I've heard that.
if I would have stayed in New York and taught in New York, I would have started out 20,000 more than what I started out here.
But
And if
that
I had
did-
gone to PSJA, where I'd gotten hired 3 times, I would have started out at about $3,000-$4,000 more base salary pay than McAllen.
And
So
then
it varies.
and then like as I grew older and I figured out kind of how shit works, then I found out that the school nurse at, I think, and I'm pretty sure you know too, I don't remember if it's an elementary or middle school, was making more than like a fucking math teacher. And then I remembered the shit that I used to go to the nurse for. And I was like, how the fuck does this bitch make more money than this algebra shit? This is
Just put an ice pack on it, honey.
Yeah.
Here, have an ice pack.
for everything. It was a fucking ice
I
pack.
have a gaping wound. Let's pack it with an
Yeah,
ice pack.
yeah. It's like the Mexican mom that tries to fix everything with Vicks. Ponte Vicks. That's all. And my favorite one. Oh, your head hurts? Put the ice pack. It still hurts? Look, I'm going to write you this pass. You give it to your teacher. You're going to get to put your head down for the rest of the day.
I never got that. I always had the
Like,
nurse that was like, okay, lay down. She'd set the 2-minute timer, and it was just a 2-minute timer. So by the time that my head laid down, that really, really stiff, leathery, I don't know, whatever. It was not a bed. It was not comfortable. I mean, I'm sure prisoners in jail would be like, what the fuck is this shit? It was terrible. By the time I finished putting my head down on it, it'd be like, okay, 2 minutes are up. Go back to class.
Yeah. Oh, and then this is when I found out that nurses at elementary schools ain't shit. So I went.
Or we're just gonna mark them all down as ain't shit.
I went, like I said, you already know the ice pack, the put your head down because it hurts, whatever. So I went. I was rushed to the nurse with a real emergency when I broke my finger. Right, my finger was literally like hanging and shit, and I was crying my eyes out. And as soon as the nurse saw me, fuck the ice pack and all of that, she literally picked up a phone and she was like, "Oh no, we got to dial 911. We need an ambulance." So yeah, she didn't do. She just
What you
saw
want her to do? Put you in the car, drive her herself?
an ice pack would have made it known at least. This is when you're supposed to at least give me an ice pack.
You had one job, Susan. Come on now.
One fucking job.
I thought you were gonna say that she got you an ice bag in that instance instead of an ice pack. She brought you an ice bag.
She didn't give me anything. She
I'm
was
gonna
like, "We
use
need to
2
call.
ice packs for this one.
We need to call 911." And I was like, "This is kind of like when you run to a fucking security guard." And they're like, "Well, I don't know. I'm not a cop." Well, motherfucker.
Just picture Bill Paxton. Game over, man. Game over.
Yeah, but anyway, point being as to why they ain't shit or why not all of them people. Some
Like,
actually.
I'll have you know, I had much respect for my elementary school teacher and nurses, especially the one who was clearly on the downslope of her career and did not give a fuck. She knew I just wanted someplace to sleep, and she was like, "Go ahead, don't cause me any problems." And I would just be like, "My stomach hurts," and then just sleep for like an hour.
Where were all of these nurses when I went to
I'm telling you,
No,
she was on the out. She was already
Mine was
eyeballing
in-
the exit. She had enough fuck it for the whole world.
I remember one time I had like the worst diarrhea. Like I thought it was gonna come out of my nose. It was so bad. And she was just like,
that would be.
"Here's
fucked
some
up
graham
everything.
crackers." And I'm just like, "Do you not understand? My bowels are about to erupt." And she's just like, "Have a graham cracker." Like, no.
I'm telling you, like, pack it with more shit. You know what I mean?
Here, eat these animal crackers. I want to know which bits come back identifiable.
Yeah. So no, but anyway, like I said, point being is then I found out that them bitches make more money than an algebra teacher. Like, you know, the fuckers that actually have to teach with numbers and letters mixed and shit.
The ones who have to know their shit.
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck is. Yeah. That's another fucking subject. I mean, this is completely ranting on something different, but that's another fucking subject that I believe should not be allowed to be taught in fucking school.
Algebra?
Numbers and letters.
No,
and...
you know what? I'm gonna totally go on the contrary because
You would.
I failed algebra in 7th grade. I was like that advanced kid, like in that little elite group at LBJ.
I was in special ed classes.
That was like, you're going to take algebra in 7th grade. And I was just like, okay. And then I showed up and was like, all right. And totally failed out. Ended up having to take it again in 9th grade. Barely passed it. But if I had been taught correctly, and if I had been properly explained like the purpose, like when I finally was able to connect algebra to economics in college, I was like, I get why is economics not taught in conjunction with algebra freshman year? It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You understand what the point of the x is. You understand the point of the slope. Oh, it's a demand curve. It just makes so much sense. And that's what these kids are getting, pure mathematics in isolation from any practical application of it.
Right. And like with me, and this is a true story. Like I was in special ed classes, right? But I always felt like, because this is part of like the bits I run on stage, but this is really a true story. Like I was in special ed classes, but I always felt that I didn't belong there because I was like, I'm not fucking retarded. Like these people clearly have something wrong with them. And this is how I knew that I wasn't like all the way fucked up. Like cause I was in those classes and they literally had me doing with like a piece of paper. They had multiple choice questions and the question literally read, circle the square. Like, which one's the square? And I was like, motherfucker, it's that one. Circle the circle. And it's like, it's that one. And I was like, I know this shit. Like, what is going... But then, so it was like... And then there was literally people that were in there. And they were like, which is the triangle? It doesn't, you know... And I would see that shit. But then, I was pulled out of the special ed classes. And I was moved into a class where the first thing that was said to me was A2 plus 3B equals 5A. And I was like, I do need to go back to the special ed classes. I was doing fine. I was at the top of the class.
Well, part of the problem is, like you were talking about them teaching economics along with algebra. I think logic would be something.
Yes.
Because,
yes.
I mean, at that point, you're not just dealing with math. I mean, like, you know, your multiplication, your addition, all of that is more of a tool set. Whereas when you get to algebra and, you know, beyond that, I tapped out before I even got to calculus. I was like, no, y'all have, I don't speak that language. I'm glad that y'all are doing it.
But I completely agree with fucking, I agree with Sean. They should teach very early fucking logic. Because, again, I was in special ed classes.
Well, once you get algebra, it is logic. Like, you got the suppositions of, A equals C and B equals C, but A doesn't equal B.
But I also mean logic as far as, like, I remember this shit that I didn't start learning until I went to college for that month that I was there. Literally. So, like I mean the logic as far as like not just the word problem solving, but where they tell you. I remember they used to do these problems where it's like I'm trying to think of one like off the top of my head, but basically it literally was like this is Sally, and I mean it's not that stupid, but that was the gist of it. This is Sally. This is a bridge. Sally goes up the bridge. The bridge ends here. What happens if Sally keeps walking? well, she's gonna fall off the fucking bridge because there's nothing. Like there was problems formulated like that to where it showed you what was gonna happen next and how to solve the problem that was coming next, which really wasn't in the algebra form. But like I think that if they would have taught that kind of logic way back in elementary, you would have a lot more. And it goes back to the critical thinking skills.
I was about to
Like,
point
you know
that
what I'm
out, but
saying?
then the logic thing would tie into the critical thinking,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
can't be having that.
And you can't be, according to
I'm being
Carlin.
facetious, y'all.
Yeah, according
Well,
to Carlin, you
You
can't
know,
be
to
having
be fair, you bring up like the whole the word problems, which was always I remember them always talking about that as far as like the toss testing and all that shit that was going on. Where it
The
was like
toss, the tax, the star, the.
I was actually in the class that was like kind of the one right before they implemented the tax test, and they were trying to like sample run it by us. Like they were bringing like we'd already done our testing, and they were bringing us back in and like running these like sample tests basically by us. And at some point, I was just like, "Does any of this matter?" And they're like, "No, but you get to help indoctrinate the next level of pawns." It's like,
See.
no, oh, you should have seen that. I was like, can you just? I'm gonna break the seal on this and just void the test. And they're like, no, don't do that. This is our state money you're playing with.
I remember, what was it? Tax. Yeah, we were transitioning from toss to tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically remember my teacher telling the class to do our worst. Because if we all failed and if we all did terribly, then the state would be forced to water down the test because it was too hard.
Yeah.
And I remember them telling us that. And it was
Well,
like
they
a
didn't
general
tell me-
consensus around the school. Like the teachers were kind of telling the kids, just try to fail as hard as you can.
Oh, no, and I would have been like, oh, no, you don't get it, man. This is me trying, and I'm still going to fail, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I mean, it goes back to the whole, like, if they would have taught us, because I didn't get taught none of that shit. I'm telling you literally, like, what I was being taught at 7, 8, 10, even 12 and 13. This is fucking embarrassing. At 13 and 14 years old, I was still doing 350 plus 475 is, and I knew in my head, I was like, this is not what I should be doing at this. So
Well, look, there's got to be a disconnect. I was listening to a conversation a short while ago with the idea of like what we consider taxation at this point and the information that is like available to us. I'm getting to a point with this.
yeah,
As far as like teaching logic, and you were joking, critical thinking, we can't have that shit. Like, it's gonna be a lot harder to like fool these kids. Like, oh, I remember what it was. I was reading an article about like depression amongst teenagers. Is like, it's not so much that the levels have gone up, but that it is self-reported more and more often. Like, it used to be just like, oh, my teenager's kind of acting moody, and then you take them in, you ask them some questions, and you're like, oh, the kid's depressed. And like now it's the kids going like, I'm fucking depressed, man. I've got anxiety. I've got all this.
Yeah.
And more they're reporting it's because of they're made aware of the grander problems of the world. You know what I mean? Like they have access to international news and, all the shit that's going on in society. And
yeah, and that's because they've learned, like, I was telling this to my little cousin, you know what I'm saying? I was pissed off because my little cousin's 8 years old, and he comes home with a fucking iPad, you know what I mean? And I got even more pissed off when I found out that these iPads are being issued from the school. Like,
From the
it's not
school.
something that they bought or whatever. And
He gets iPads, our kids get Chromebooks that don't even get me
yeah,
started.
going to like what Sean is saying, I was telling my aunt that it's like these kids, like, they're living in the age of technology, which I'm for it and against it at the same time, because you are making them smarter, but that smartness is making them more stupid, because now they're smarter because they're learning faster and they're learning in a different way, but you're making them dependent on technology. What happens if the phone goes away? What happens if the I mean, I get it. It going away is a long shot, but they don't have the fundamentals to rely on. The most advanced, think about it, the most advanced shit that we had when we were growing up, well, I mean, I don't know about you,
Was a
but
Tamagotchi.
what was a fucking, what the fuck is that?
You know those little animals that's it's like you
Oh,
gotta.
that, yeah.
It's time
yeah.
to feed your pet. And the
Yeah.
teacher's like, "Who the hell brought a cat to class?"
No, the fucking, a calculator. That like that
That
was
you could
it.
turn upside down and spell hell with, and that was the
Yeah.
most scandalous thing we did.
That was
Like,
the
look,
first
I spell
form.
hell.
That was the first form of texting you ever got. You spell boob. Yeah, that was. I spelled boob.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Anyway, but
we've talked about your predilections. Well, okay. Well, part of what I was getting at was the point that, like, if you're not, there used to be a delay factor where it's like kind of like, I don't know why they're teaching me this history and this math, and then maybe hopefully at some point around, 9th or 10th grade, you suddenly go, oh, it's all connected. You know what I mean? So
I didn't make that connection until I was a junior in college.
Again, there's a delay factor kind of where you realize that, like,
I didn't get that far.
This isn't just like, oh, well, I'd go to this class and then I'd go to this class. It's like, no, there's supposed to be interconnecting tissue. There's usually not. But at this point, the kids, I imagine any kid that's like actually paying attention to any degree is going to kind of feel that need for the underlying connective tissue. It's like more and more they need to be made aware of why they need to be made aware. You can't just go, learn the math because I told you so. It's like, no, you're going to need to know math because more and more your life is going to be dictated by math. I mean, not just like, well, if I fall off a 10-foot drop, maybe I won't crack my head open. Like, it's like, no, you're going to have like some, robotics apparently is going to be the next big avenue of, if we're going to be training the next generation of manufacturer, workers, robotics is going to be key for that. And a lot of that is going to be knowing precise tables and, being able to implement logical on-the-fly mathematics without fucking it up and maybe getting your arm taken off,
And let me ask you a question because again, you're a teacher and you've been through the whole scholastic spiel of like you fucking, because you have a master's.
I have a master's in teaching English, which my students let me know all the time is the most useless degree and that they would never ever get. But I'm proud of it.
Holy fuck! I would have killed them. Anyway, yeah, those kids would have never seen what grade is it? They would have never made it to high school. Anyway, so. You have a master's degree, which in my book, you know some shit. So, this is my question. Out of all the class, because you still remember the classes that you took in college for the most part, right?
Oh, yeah. I remember classes I took in elementary school. I remember playing centers in kindergarten and fighting because my Orquilla didn't make it to the thing on time.
I wasn't going to go back that far, but where I was going with it is when you were in college, there was just classes that you took and you need to pass these classes so you can get your degree. Out of all those classes that you took for your teaching degree, were there not classes that you took that now you graduated, you have your degree, and you're like, why the fuck did I take that class? Like that you just completely found that you took it and you found useless. That you could like live without it and shit would have not mattered.
That's a really good question. There was this class that I took because I decided I was going to double major in English and economics. And I ended up falling one class short. So it didn't even matter that I suffered through those advanced economics courses. But I took one called the Economics of Trade, which was like globalization and world trade and how all that works. And I don't think it was
that
necessarily...
actually sounds very useful.
I don't think it was necessarily the class, because it was indeed something very useful, but I got nothing from it because the professor, I guess, like, I don't even know how to describe it. I always give the example to my students on the whiteboard. I'm like, so he's explaining the lesson and he's just making these little marks in a circle, and those were our notes for the class. And I understood nothing what came out of his mouth because he's describing things like this. And I had no issue understanding Koreans, but he didn't even make the effort to open his mouth when he talked. So I guess in terms of uselessness, it was never really about the content. It was just based on who was teaching it. And so it was useless to me because I got nothing from that man. But everything, I don't know, I guess because my philosophy is like nothing is non sequitur, which means like nothing does not follow. Everything in some way is somehow connected. And I feel like a lot of that comes out in my teaching. Like last year when I taught the Telltale Heart, and we were able to transition from Flowers for Algernon to the Telltale Heart by connecting no, it wasn't Flowers for Algernon. It was connecting the Holocaust to the Telltale Heart with the Ghetto Boys, connecting it to Elvis's song in the ghetto.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. They allowed you to use the Ghetto Boys as a reference?
So this was my first year teaching there, and I told my students, I trust that you all are very mature individuals, and you will understand that this is connected to the lesson. And when I framed it that way, they all just kind of got like, dun, 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 dun. Oh no, this is academic. You know, my mind is playing tricks on me.
Holy shit, you're the coolest teacher ever.
But they were able to, and I was like, okay, so what might have been the connections between this and that? And they were able to, like, and all these hands were like, oh, well, he's talking about this and this and that. And the term ghetto refers to, like, the original ghettos in, even the way they spell Ghetto Boys, Geto, refers back to the original ghettos in Italy, where, the first segregation of Jews with that term was taking place. So where they isolate, because they've been isolating Jews since they persecuted Jesus back in, the year 33. Yeah. And so the first time they used the term ghetto, it was Geto.
That's fucking crazy. And I was the only fucking first grader in all of elementary school to ever be suspended because I took the NWA tape and I played in the classroom boombox. And I played... And I played Fuck the Police. So Dre...
I think that the most surprising part of that story to today's youth would be the fact that you played it on a boombox. Because they'd be like, what is that?
True.
It's not NWA. It's that you had what is a boombox?
Why didn't you just use your earbuds, dummy?
Why didn't you just use your AirPods?
I know.
Because only one is going to charge anyway. And that's fine. Because the quality is so great.
Yeah. I'll never forget that. I got suspended for playing NWA on the classroom boombox, and then the teacher couldn't figure out how to turn it off fast enough, and then she asked me why I did it, and I literally said word for word, "'Cause fuck the police, that's why." And she took me to the office, and my mom whooped my ass when I got home. So yeah.
Nice. I got a question for y'all because you were bringing up not only the economics, but I like the way you put it. Everything is there are no non sequiturs. Are y'all familiar with modern monetary theory?
Is that like the Chicago guy, Milton? Oh my gosh,
I'm not sure.
I had kids, and they told me that after I had kids, I was gonna lose my memory, and I was like, that's fucking bullshit. I had 2 kids and I was fine. And after the third one, it was like half of my college education just went through my C-section scar. I was gonna say my vagina, but I didn't have kids through that. I went out my C-section.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. As soon as you said Chicago,
I don't know what the origins of it are, but it's been coming up in conversations a lot recently, specifically tied in with some of the Democratic.
Milton Friedman, is that the guy?
I don't know if it's tied to Friedman's work. Friedman's one of those people where, like, if I read other people discussing his ideas, I'm like, oh, that sounds good. But then I listen to him actually discuss it, and it's like, Jesus, you're throwing a lot of big words at me. Just hold on a second. But the modern monetary theory is this idea of basically using controlled inflation. It's essentially bowing to the concept of fiat currency, in that instead of going, well, we eventually have to pay this debt that we're accruing back somehow, it's just like, no, it's a feature, not a bug. So, like, kind of rather than trying to say build a budget in which we kind of go, okay, eventually we're going to pay off all this debt that we have, and we're not going to have to say print more money in a way that's going to cause inflation. It's just kind of going, no, we're constantly going to be racking up debt, and that's okay because we can just print more money and we'll control the inflation, right? This goes
like the quantitative easing thing that Bernanke was doing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it was based on, only they weren't being quite so upfront about it at that point because, well, yeah, if you, it's okay. The non sequitur was the comment was where I was kind of going with that is this idea of going, well, we're already, we already have a couple trillion in debt, and it's more than that. Was it 20 trillion or something at this point?
Well, I think we're up at 22. I think.
Yeah.
And when
I get it at that point, like the zeros don't even make sense. It's like the human mind can't really encompass.
I was gonna say, and this is not even like to be funny. I really was literally thinking about it the other day, because I googled the debt, and it's like 22 trillion and change. Let's say that. So I was, because you said the number is just astronomical at this point.
It scares the shit out of me that, like, every once in a while, and this has been constant like through most of my adult life, people will go like, we should teach a class in school where we teach kids how to balance a checkbook. And I mean, even though we got rid of all those classes 20 years back or whatever, it's like teach kids like real solid behavior and financial responsibility. And then you realize the people that are making decisions about our budget as a nation are kind of going like, numbers don't matter. And it's that throwing of logic out the window that just kind of scares the shit out of me.
Like
I imagine that would on some level. I mean, I know you're not teaching math, but just the frustration of going, how am I supposed to teach them how to be logical when you fuckers aren't?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. I completely agree with that. And what I was going to say was,
kick in the front door of the classroom and go, it doesn't fucking matter.
I was thinking about it, and then because I went on a trip, like honestly, like researching shit. This is how I stayed up to like 2:00 in the morning. Anyway, I started researching like the national debt and all of that. It's up to like 22 trillion, and then first of all, I want to say, personally speaking, that shit's never gonna go away. If you think that that's gonna go away, it's not. It's gonna keep going. It's gonna keep rising. Eventually, somebody's gonna get pissed off, and war is gonna break out. Sorry to break it to y'all. Anyway, that's not where I was going with it. Where I was going with it was like, let's step into a fantasy world. What if they really did want to pay this back? My question to you was, because I really got down into like trying to find a logical way. I'll tell you how, like, I even went as deep into like figuring out how many billionaires there's just in this country, and I think the number I came across was 92. There's 92 billionaires, and it's also the only country in the world that has that many billionaires. So then below that, there's millionaires, and then there's people below the millionaires. There's people that are well off. And then you have the middle class. And then you have...
who got fucked on their income taxes this year.
Exactly. Then you have the broke people. So, like the real broke people, I mean. Because middle class, some of us are also broke. But my point is, like, if you even really tried to pay it back, how would you do it? And I was like, well, you would take money from here and shit like that. Basically... taking money from here to cover another hole, and then just that creates a whole other problem and everything. But I was gonna say, in y'all's personal opinion, do you honestly think that that debt will ever be paid back? And secondly, in if so, if y'all were in control, if y'all really wanted to pay it back, do you have any plan, or do you feel that you have any plan on how you would pay it back? That would be reasonable, but that would also get the job done. And of course, this would happen after this fucking administration is out, because it's not gonna happen with this administration and the dumbass decisions that they're making.
Look, I think first of all is to differentiate between, say, bonds that we've sold as a nation to like other nations, and just kind of some debt to. All right, let's be honest. Any debt to the Federal Reserve is bullshit on the face of it. I just don't want to see our politicians relying on it as some sort of magic, like, whoa, we just print more money. And it's like
That doesn't work. I mean, if you feel that printing more money, because
it can work in very limited cases. But all right, like for example, you brought up Bernanke doing the whole quantitative easing, and I'm pretty sure he invented that phrase, that's a little bit concerning too, where it's like, how do we better describe the bullshit that we're
Let's make it sound real good.
Collateral damage. But part of that was because of the choices that were made in regards to the bank failures and this idea that we can't let them fail. Okay, well if that's what you're going in with, that's the supposition you're making, then you have to do the quantitative easing, printing more money, whatever it is. It's not that it can't work and wouldn't be the smart move in certain situations, but my whole concern is like, we're currently not in a position. Okay, think of the nation as a corporation. The purpose of a corporation is to earn the shareholders more profit, right? Or to earn them more value for the value that they've put into the endeavor. Well, currently we're in the red. So we have no profit. There is no like dividends. It's like I think it was back during George W. Bush's first term, where like they were like, hey, we've actually got like a bonus this year, and it was miscalculation. I understand what they were trying to do with it, but they basically sent everybody like $400 in the mail, or I think it.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
I think.
But that's how bullshit our debt is at this point, where it's like, if we were genuinely in debt, like we owed somebody money, like bonds are not debt, which is a problem because we kind of lump all these numbers together. But the idea of being in debt in that, like, because I mean, we've all been in debt when you go, oh shit, any extra penny I make has to go to paying this off. Well, if you can occasionally go like, we act like we have money to spend, but if you actually looked at it on paper, we not only don't have money to spend, we owe like magnitudes more than we actually are even capable of producing. So like, I'm with you in the idea of like, okay, we'll probably never pay back any debt that is currently on paper to any meaningful. That's one of the reasons I say the first thing we need to do in that conversation is separate out the government bonds that other countries have literally gone, we are buying stock in your company, because those are paying customers. Any of the World Banks, National Federal Reserve, whatever, they can all go rot and do horrible things to each other in sexual or non-sexual fashion. Doesn't matter. My point being that, to a certain extent, fuck the bankers. They're a necessary parasite in that we can't function in the way that we do as a global economy or even in a regional or national economy without having that means of exchange. Though hopefully, I mean, at some point in the future here, one of these brilliant children that are being educated under our fine system, grows up and figures out a way to do proper, fully encrypted peer-to-peer, I mean, we have tools at this point where you can kind of bypass banks as a structure right up until a point, at which point MasterCard has to get involved. What I'm saying is, if we could at least get the system where, all right, think of it this way. The military is always going to be a sink because you don't get anything out of that. Like, there's no, unless you count something like the Army Corps of Engineers where, they help build a dam or something. There's no payback from military spending. That's always going to be a deficit. Not a deficit. What's it called? Like, that's a loss.
Technically speaking, we get protection from it, so we're paying for the protection
we're paying a very high
it's
class
insurance. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I get that. Like, and I know a lot of people are gonna get pissed off when they hear that, but I'm with you on it because they don't like to hear that. It's just what people like to hear is that they like to hear that we're paying for our freedom. So.
Well, here's the thing. The security is kind of an added bonus at this point because our military wouldn't be what it is if it hadn't also been used as a tool for, say, international relations. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Smedley Butler, War is a Racket. The whole idea that in the early part of the 20th century, we were going to war to help out, like, Dole Pineapple. We just like, fuck it, let's invade Nicaragua. Just really out there type of shit that today, if we were to do it, I mean, that's why we still kind of have that, every time, why are we in Syria? They got oil. Why do we care about Venezuela? They got oil. It's just the idea.
It's a whole, like, that was going to be my whole point to it.
And to be honest, if we were using our military like that openly, like if it wasn't just like, well, it's an added bonus that we also get access to their markets. I mean, if we were literally going, oh no, we're going to invade your country and take all your natural resources, at least at that point, the military would be paying for itself. But it's never going to be like that if we're genuine about our ideals as a higher enlightened people, We don't steal from each other. Well, I don't know. It might pay some bills. Not a happy outcome, definitely. Though, all right, that's getting off on a bit of a tangent. Where I'm going with this is, no, I don't think we'll ever pay back the deficit as it stands. We should probably go ahead and get some kind of, declare bankruptcy on that one. Just like, hey, you guys aren't going to get your money back. But we do need to figure out...
Chapter 7 or Chapter 13? It's a joke, yo. You don't have to answer that.
He's legitimately thinking about it.
What would offer the greatest protection from...
yeah, man.
I was listening to... I forget... What's the name of the guy that's running on the Universal Basic Income?
Yang?
Yeah, Andrew Yang. All power to him. I don't think he's going to make it past the primaries, but you never know.
I still have faith in Bernie, but I don't know.
Based on what?
Based on... You're right. Just by you saying that, it kind of clicked in my head. And you're right, but...
Look, I would have voted for Bernie back, just... because it'd be like, yeah, throw the crazy old socialist in there. Let's see how it happens.
Like his whole prep, like, I'm already wrong. Like, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail with it because a lot of it I don't understand. I'm not gonna lie, but a lot of his premise was kind of take from the people that have money and place it here. And I get it. Like, this would create more problems or more potholes. But it does feel like the potholes that it would create, they would be a lot smaller. You're always going to have potholes. You're always going to have run-ins that you're not going to get rid of. But my whole thing behind Bernie was that at least with all the money that's being savagely wasted, because that's what the fuck they're doing, at least put some of it to good use. For example, he believed in free college for everybody. Now, this is the only thing that I have to base it on. Going on to what's going on right now. I don't know how high it is now, but back a couple of months ago, I read somewhere that there's a $700 billion budget just for military alone. Okay? So I'm just thinking, um, if you have that kind of budget
Okay.
for military,
This is not to shit necessarily on the idea. This is just to kind of point out how easily it is to poke holes and lay shit upon it. You went to college, Analyssa. You also are trying to educate young impressionable minds. Do you genuinely believe that they should all go to college?
I'm going to be completely honest. No, because we need.
that's a whole different argument within itself, though. That's
Well,
not
there's
where I
a
was
lot of
going.
different reasons why
Okay.
I feel that way.
Even if no, and I'm not saying I disagree with you. I agree with you 100%. Not college is not for everybody. I stand by it. But that's a different
Where
argument.
I was going with this is we're fairly certain, just based on human history, we're always going to need some military of some sort.
No, I get it, and
We're gonna need technicians. We need
No,
HVAC guys to come in
and
and hook up my AC in my
and
house.
I get it.
Right.
But two things there. If you were to give just an example, if you were to give the option, because that's what it's going to be and that's what it's going to remain to be, the option of being able to school without the fear of creating this fucking debt that you're going to carry for years after you graduate. Like, more people would go to college, but there still would be people like myself. I strongly still believe that even if college was free, I still wouldn't go, because the money thing wasn't really the issue for me. The issue was that I just couldn't learn like everybody else. That was my issue. So back to kind of what you were saying is, I still believe that if college was free, not everybody would go, but a lot more people that I feel should go would go, because I feel that there's a lot of actual bright minds that are going to waste just because they don't have the monetary substance to actually go to college. And I hate when people give me this shit. Well, you can get help, you can get financial aid, you can get loans for what? So that you can graduate college with this fucking big ass debt that's gonna take you 30 fucking years to like get rid of, like.
And that's the gamble that I ended up taking, because to me the cost of college was not a deterrent to how badly I wanted to learn. Like, I just had that
But you don't
desire
my
that I
point
was
is,
like $90,000. This is not gonna stop me, and I think I'm like over that now with the interest and whatnot. But yeah, my debt is up there. And
Holy
I will
fuck, and I thought mine
probably
was
never
bad.
be able to buy a house because of that, which sucks. But I do have... Is that a tacuache knocking on your door?
Very possible.
Oh no. No, I do have possums, but they're on the fucking. They're on the roof. No, that's the freezer in the refrigerator.
I forgot what I was talking about.
Debt and you not being able to buy a house because of debt.
I don't know, but that is something that I think about when I think in terms of free college for all, because as much as I love my job, there's a lot of bullshit that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And the way that our superintendent runs our school district, he is claiming that, our school should be run on a customer service model, which I think is just totally misaligned. I think that customer service and education are two completely different fields.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to educating, there's certain things that are just not tolerable, that are tolerable in a customer service setting. And so I'm thinking if everybody's able to go to college. Well, how is that going to change the standards of college education? Because in college, if you're not up to standard, you get kicked out. You get academic probation. You can only drop so many classes if you're getting financial aid. But what's gonna, so if everybody has access to free education, well, how much bullshit are college professors gonna have to put up with in terms of
that was
the kids
something I was
who
going to
just kind
bring
of
in.
want to just fuck around and just be like, whatever, I'm here for free and you have to deal with me.
Well, something I was going to bring in, you were talking when the conversation about building up debt is another thing you see is say a student signs up to go to college and then halfway through a semester they're going, oh shit, these are the wrong classes. Maybe I'm as Freddy was saying, maybe I'm not capable of doing the scholastic work involved to get this, or maybe if we had where's what I'm looking for, an interconnected type of educational system in which, say you go for a scholastic degree and then you realize, I'm not going to cut the mustard. Well, maybe that school can funnel you into trade or into, say, a different degree, whereas right now you would have to do the legwork of going like, okay, well, shit, now I got to sign up for this school, but that doesn't forgive the debts for the last school. Whereas there are a few things where I think something like a socialized system, where if you had an entire bureaucracy dedicated to just funneling all of the necessary work, so that all right, you were talking about being in the GT program, I'm assuming when you were in high school? Or no, you said 7th grade, so that would be junior high, right? Okay, part of the problem with the GT program is that it requires either the student or the teacher to actually say something to the student, the guidance counselor. There has to be a kind of initiation of the process rather than there being some sort of like automatic check. If student A is getting consistently above average score counts on their tests, then go ahead and stick them into a pilot program for getting into the GT program, getting into the AP and all that stuff. If the student is underscoring, maybe give them a shop class. I think we've kind of gone a little too far with the a la carte education, where it's like, well, you can study anything. It's like, yeah, you can study anything, but if we're being honest here, you're going to be a car mechanic, Timmy.
And
there's
the thing
nothing
too
wrong
is that
with that.
just because somebody's
I strongly
GT
agree with that.
doesn't necessarily mean that they should study something doesn't mean that they should necessarily be a STEM scientist, or that they should be a philosopher. They could very well be a motorcycle mechanic and be fantastic at what they do.
I saw a lot of students that were the one that sticks out in my mind was a cheerleader that was in a lot of these AP programs that I was in when I was in high school, and you could see that she was there because, one, it was going to look very good on a resume. You know what I mean? You could witnessing that at that age was kind of weird, which is that's what I mean about the a la carte model of education, in that it's like, okay, I want that. Well, now I have to meet those, these prerequisites for that. It's like, well, okay, you've been funneled into this classroom, very structural system since you were a child. Like, all the data to determine whether or not you're going to be qualified for that should already be taken into account somewhere along the way. We always got threatened with that whole permanent record thing. Well, what the fuck was the point of having the permanent record if there's not something that can be gleaned out of that? And if there isn't, then why the fuck are we keeping it?
Yeah.
Other than blackmail, but that's something else.
No, and I'm just saying because, like, I love the way you put that, in the way that you can't. I had an idea and I was going somewhere with it, but fuck, I'm not even gonna try. There was something that you said, the way you were explaining that about fucking, like, being a doctor or being a lawyer or whatever, or telling kids, you can be whatever you want to be, or not be whatever you want to be, but because I'm not trying to shit on people's dreams either, but like you can study whatever you want to study, right? And it reminds me, and I was gonna ask you, I mean, if you either heard it or you got any of it, Chris Rock talks about that in his last special.
I love how
Well,
he can make all these allusions to like comedians and
Yeah,
specific stand-up.
because it like it reminds me like specifically the way you were.
If you were sitting here with a couple of engineers, they would be, you know, I love it when they changed over to the ICAP machines. Those were great.
Yeah, yeah, it's like fucking that he was saying you know that you know this person wants to be a lawyer, wants to be a doctor, but he was like, you know, some of them are just gonna be fucking like mechanics or whatever. It's like and Chris Rock says that like I went to my daughter's private school, you know, and they were giving these kids this speech about, you know, you can be whatever the fuck you want to be, and yeah, you can teach them and tell them that, but you know, what you were saying, Timmy here is gonna be a mechanic or whatever. Kind of said the same thing. Is like true, and maybe out of 20 students, 3, if you're lucky, are gonna be whatever they want to be. But he was like, but to be honest with you, I see about 17 Uber drivers.
Well, and to be really fair, if we're taking in like the whole picture, they're probably going to be, you know, those 3 that are going to be the successful CEOs, and then you're going to have another 3 at the other end of the spectrum that are not qualified to do shit.
Exactly.
Like they might be qualified to actually lift and move objects, and that's
I mean, about it.
We don't want to believe that. It's like every kid can be something, and it's like no, some of them can't.
Yeah.
But if we're at least if we're not having the conversation as to how to acknowledge that and go like, you know, how can these kids be useful as adults to not only themselves but maybe society as a greater whole. At the end of the day, it all comes back to like, look, if you're gonna, anytime the government starts paying for things, the only way the system is gonna work is either if the government has complete control over it, or if they stop paying for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I mean, either
that's the sad truth about
because right now we're doing a half-ass system where we have these kind of government guaranteed loans for students, and that's not working because it's driving up the cost of education
insanely.
And as you were saying, it's kind of watering it down because it's incentivizing that customer-based philosophy, which is, you know, like, oh, we can't fail the kid, you know, we must funnel them into another, and it's like, no, they didn't get the grades, fucking failed the little fucker.
Yeah.
And that's, you're doing them no benefit by kind of like, you know,
and even more so now, it's not so much that the responsibility is on the student, but that a lot of it is just somehow being shoveled onto the shoulders of the parents.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, why is my son failing, and what can my son do? And I don't know why I always say son, but it seems that, you know, mothers of sons seem to be the ones who are more concerned. But you know, why is my son, and what can my son do, and how can we fix this problem? And you know, trying to figure out what they can do to get their child to be successful.
Yeah.
When at this point, at 14 years old, you know, your kid's gonna have to eventually start wiping his own butt at some point. And we're starting to see that even, you know, going into the high school, going into college, where I see, you know, the moms there behind the kids helping them fill out their FAFSAs. Like, man, I did this on my own. Like, I had to figure this out by myself. You know, what the hell is a FAFSA? You know, what is financial aid? How does any of this work? And now there's like this helicopter mentality of, I need to stick by my child to ensure that they are successful all the way through, and not really letting them absorb their failures, because they're kind of like, oh, well, it's because I did something to misguide you somewhere along the way, and it's my fault that he didn't pass that class because I had him helping me with too many chores or something.
Yeah. Right.
Do you another thing that I was just thinking about is like with these schools and universities, and I think I also do believe some high schools do it, that have these, I don't know how big, but like these budgets for music programs and music teaching and stuff like that. Do you like, and I'm asking you as well because you're a teacher and you're also a musician, but do you think that it really is beneficial to like actually have these like music programs?
Absolutely. And the reason I say that is because if there wasn't some kind of like art program or music program or some kind of like creative outlet built into the curriculum, like built into the school itself, I probably would not have graduated. Like I needed something that was not, I guess, I don't know, so structured or so bland. I don't
Yeah.
really know how to describe it, but it was, even though it wasn't the greatest creative outlet that existed out there. I mean, like my band teacher, I remember her throwing the metronome at kids, but to me that was just like so much better than having to sit down and do long division with root, what is it, square roots and whatnot.
Okay. And like I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but like your love for music and your songwriting and your singing, like did you discover that yourself at an early age, or was that discovered at an early age and then it was refined because you kind of picked it up in school, or how did music come about and work for you basically?
I think I just always wanted to be a musician, but never believed that I could. I never thought I had a voice that was good enough, and that's what I get. You want the things that you cannot have.
Yeah.
And so that's what drove me to kind of become curious, like, what can I do with my voice if I practice really hard?
But
And what can I do with my fingers if I try this instrument that my hands are not built for, because I have these tiny chubby fingers that are totally not guitar fingers.
and I mean, I was gonna say, well, I mean, now and again, in today's technology, you don't have to worry about fucking like not being able to sing. I mean, auto tune exists, so Britney Spears has a lot of her hits to.
I don't know
thank
how
for
much.
that.
Well, you know what? I take that back. The first time I ever sang in front of anybody, I got booed off stage. It was like
And I've
a
heard from
stab in the heart.
I-
I was like, unbreak my heart, and the kids were just like, you sing like a man.
oh, but they were kids. What the fuck do they know?
And
I thought you were booed like from
and
like
so I kept my mouth shut for a really long time, and then my choir teacher, 10th grade high school, I don't know, I was like, I'm ready to put myself back out there, and I know that I suck, so I have nothing to lose, so teach me. And he was like, match these notes on the piano, la 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 la, and I just matched the notes, which I figured everybody knew how to do. And he was just like, Jesus has answered all my prayers. And I'm just, I don't know what that means.
How old were you?
15, 16.
So you were 16 when you started playing the guitar, or
When I really started singing.
oh,
I was
so-
about 11 when I picked up the guitar and learned a little bit and never quite progressed past that, but have been making it work for the past however many years. I feel like that's too much of a number to try to calculate.
Nice. So with that being said, those little years that you supposedly have of experience, you mind showing it off for the camera?
All right. Here we go. Let's dive into some... Okay, so critical thinking, tie this into education. This was something that I wrote about how I feel about that whole critical thinking component and how that's kind of being funneled out of society. And I haven't practiced this in a long time, so my finger picking might be rough, but this is a song called Soul Spoken.
Soul spoken.
Inspiration cleans and feels off the control is all the future lacks. So spoken, kill you with your lies. So spoken, you kill me with your lies. Do you know who you can trust? Oh, do you know who you can trust? Do you think you know? Do you know who you can trust when fears instilled inside of us? Do you think you know? So spoken, you kill me with your lies. So spoken, you kill me with your lies.
Nice.
Right on.
So there's Soul Spoken, and I guess I'll end with one that.
Oh, so we're just getting 2 songs?
Oh, you want more? I can give you more. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll go from that, and then I went through like this folk phase where I was trying to discover who I was as a songwriter, and some really folksy stuff was coming. Well, I guess that's all that kind of comes out of me. But this was like the first song that I wrote that I was kind of like, that's the direction I'm headed in as a songwriter. I don't know if it has a title, but here it is. Holes with the light shining through, piercing darkness with its 10 middle claws. So that was like freshmanish year, kind of realizing that I was going to be an acoustic musician. And that was the year that I first started talking to my husband, who at the time was living in New York. And we had this super long distance thing going on, which kind of led me into starting to write a song that I didn't really finish till 10 years later, which culminated in the death of my aunt, because I realized that death was this long distance love relationship where the desire to want to be with that person and wanting to hear them and be near them, and having a telephone or a prayer not be sufficient enough to feed that desire. So this is, most of my songs are untitled, but I guess I'll call this one the Feed Me song. the feed it, the hunger, the plague. Torture when you're so far away. 'Cause saying I hate you is too much to deny. But saying I love you would be a lie.
Right on.
And so that's probably one of the last songs that I finished writing more recently, which was kind of at the tail end of last year. And I'll play one more for you guys. Freddy knows this one. He's heard me sing this one at open mics.
I think I know which one.
So it's a poem. It was originally a poem that I wrote when my daughter was first born. So the poetry version of this song, I'm going to try not to cry. I always cry when I say it. It's like a mom thing. Months unfold as I watch you grow. The mouth of my soul you feed. And your face will change as seasons rearrange and your leaves blow in the breeze. Tiny breaths emerge from deep, dark depths inside infinity. And tears will flow like floods we've never known for reasons beyond me. So that was all that I had written. And then one day I was like, we should try turning this into a song. And so this is what came out of it.
Nice.
And the chorus says, blue is a color darker than the dreams I dream alone, and a shade inside a spectrum I won't know because I have 3 daughters and no sons.
That is.
Okay.
Damn.
I feel like I put you guys to sleep.
No, that definitely. No, I just. Like, when I listen to music, especially music, I feel like there's a lot of people that really don't do this, but like I go really deep into, like, I start analyzing lyrics and what are they saying, what are they talking about. Now, given it takes me more than listening to a song once to actually go through that breakdown or whatever, but I always do that. And then you listen to it, and I like, there's a difference between hearing a song and listening to it. So then I go through the process of listening, and it's just lyrics always get me. Like when somebody's really talking about something, like it really gets me, and that's why I sometimes I get lost in thought and like thinking. I try to get into the musician's head or the writer's head, as into like, why was she writing this when she wrote it and stuff like that. But then, like, with your lyrics, it's like, not only, like, I feel like I don't have to think about it, and I can kind of ease back and lay back and enjoy it, because you're literally explaining, like like you're explaining your lyrics, what you're feeling, and that came up. Like, you're taking me on a trip. That's why I like going back to the conversation that we had about the Beatles. Like, to a lot of people, those lyrics sound crazy. Like, they just sound like it's not normal. But then
I am the Eggman. Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo.
but then you find out that John Lennon would love to go on acid trips, and you're like, oh, that's
Lennon,
what.
McCartney, Harrison.
Yeah,
And
then,
that the walrus was some kind of a euphemism for like capitalist markets. And...
but then, like, you were like, oh, that's where the yellow submarine came from. You know what I mean? Like,
I think I was telling you the last time we were having this conversation about the kind of storytelling aspect along with the music. One of the few concert tickets I felt that I got not only my value but plus some on was getting to see B.B. King probably around like the last year and a half he was alive. I could be
so
wrong.
Jealous.
me too. I told
Down
him,
here
like,
at the theater, or not the theater, the stadium, State Farm, I guess. Yeah, and I went with a couple buddies of mine. We snuck in some fifths of rum and got completely too intoxicated. I mean, just enough intoxicated to enjoy the show, but especially to listen to everybody clapping offbeat to his song and just seeing the old man on stage go, fuck it, they paid for the tickets.
Yeah.
But he spent probably, I'd say maybe half, if not more, of the time telling stories between the songs rather than actually playing the music. And as we're walking out of the theater, my buddy, again, highly intoxicated, just goes, I really wish you'd just shut up and play the guitar. And I think that might encapsulate the listening tastes of a large majority of people. You were talking about, you can hear a song and then you can listen to a song, and those are two different things.
Yeah.
It's always nice when the words have some sort of significance
Yeah.
behind them, because you listen to a lot of stuff on the radio at this point. You just kind of go, you were just trying to find something that rhymed with that last word you really liked.
Exactly. And that's where I was taking my shot. Well, I mean, I haven't listened to the radio in over maybe like 10 years. Like, to the actual radio, commercial radio, I haven't listened to like in over like 10 years or whatever. Cause it's
You're
like,
not missing much. There's a song about Takis, and that's about it.
Jesus Christ.
We're getting close to the singularity. I can feel it coming.
Wow.
Every once in a while I tune in just to be like, nope, still sucks.
Yeah. So that's where I was going with it. Like, songs today, I've listened to some, like, again, not on the radio, but because YouTube is for some reason something a lot of us can't avoid. Like it's just kind of in your face. So I've heard some shit, and it's like, what the fuck? Like they're not talking about anything at all. Like anything. Well, I mean, mostly what I listen to is hip hop and rap. But even at that, like my hip hop and rap, like ended at the turn of the century, like the late 90s. I might still listen to some of that, but anything at the turn of the century, with the exception of Eminem and a few others, like I listen to. But I mean, everything else is like,
There's a very superficial quality
yeah,
to music across genres, you know, not just rock or hip hop or rap, just in general, this commercial superficiality to it, and that's
yeah,
something that I've always wanted to stay away from. And whether or not I get famous or whether or not anybody cares or likes my music, this is something that came from my heart, and this
yeah.
is something that means something to me.
My grandfather, I always remember, because you know how that real famous saying that they say you can do anything that you put your mind to. Well, my grandfather, I remember him saying, because I remember when I was young, I wanted to do the whole rap thing, and I recorded my own mixtapes, and sold them, for $5 a pop. Anybody that bought my mixtape, I apologize for ripping you off. Um, so
Was it more lucrative than your book?
yeah, it was. It actually was. I'm not gonna lie. I if I tell you that I make $2,000 off of music, I wouldn't be too far off, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah, I made about $2,000 off of
That's
selling.
more money than I make tutoring.
It's a lot of people
And now,
he
now
needs to apologize to.
keep in mind, I'm talking about $2,000 off of, like, I sold off the trunk of our car or whatever off of $5 a pop, but it was like one, like it was a collection of like I recorded like 4 mixtapes, and it was like $2,000 out of selling all the 4 or 5 whatever mixtapes that I sold, and there was like 7 or 8 songs on it or whatever. I still remember where I sold them at.
You're gonna have to rap. You're gonna have to like give us a little sample of something.
No, that's not gonna. Because, like I said, I have to.
I just imagine you as a rapper as like one of those like Chicano rappers, like the Mexicans.
And to be real honest with you, there was no, like, within my raps, there was nothing Chicano about them. I was trying to be very
I'm on the back of a pickup truck. I'm gonna get me some grapefruit.
It wasn't like that either, but yeah, so yeah, I used to sell them out the trunk of a car. Anyway, my grandfather, he found out I wanted to do this, and I love my grandfather to death. He was one of the few people, with the exception of my mother, that no matter what I wanted to do, they never shitted on it. Ever. Like, my grandfather and my mother always supported me. Like, no matter how whack the idea was, they were like genuinely behind me. And my brother, shout out to my brother, he was always like that. And to this day, he supports my sorry comedy career. Anyway, uh, so like, I remember him telling me, you've heard people tell you that you can do anything you set your mind to. But he said, but only the things that you put your heart into last forever. And that like, it stuck with me. And it's so true. Like, you can honestly count the real musicians that really put their heart into their music, and that's the music that you still hear today. Like I don't doubt that. I can give you some examples. I don't doubt that Michael Jackson did it. You can hear it even when you watch him in performance. Now, I'm not saying that there's some people that put their hearts into music and also put a little bit of weed and cocaine and maybe other substances, but those were just enhancements.
Well, like one of those that when I think of it is, I've been on this Lady Gaga kick, and some of her stuff is genuinely like, damn, like that was like Speechless. I don't know if you guys have ever heard Speechless. She claims she wrote the song about the relationship she had with her dad. Kind of this strained relationship, but it's this kind of bared back, doesn't have a whole bunch of techno in the background. So she goes from like poker face, in this crazy like intergalactic costume to this song that just like she really bears it out there. And so, there's artists out there who definitely have the capability of doing so, and then also try to balance that with their commercial success.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just it always stuck. Like it always stuck with me, and it goes. I lean back more on what I was telling you earlier, like the writing. No matter what artistic form, I've always like tried to get into, whether it was the poetry, whether it was the songwriting when I was writing raps, or whether it's comedy writing. I've always been very jealous per se of like my work. I've always been the one to like I want to do it because it's me. Like I feel that when you pour yourself into like an art form, like it's a representation and a description of yourself and who you are. That's why like me and Sean, we've had this conversation before to where I've told him, I mean, whether it would have been with music or with comedy, I would never be able to ghostwrite for anybody. I just can't. Like, no matter how much money you throw at me, I mean, not unless you got a billion in front of it, but with the exception of that, and I don't think anybody would ever pay that.
It's
But
very easy to have scruples when nobody's offering to buy you out.
yeah, but I really do feel like I would not be able to ghostwrite for anybody because then, like, I would always see or hear that song or hear that bit or whatever it may be, and it would always be in the back of my head. I was like, I wrote that. Like that belongs to me, no matter if I sold it or if it's just. And I would never be able to live with the fact of like, I gave it, and much less like for example, if it was a song, if it becomes a classic hit, I would have never like I would never be able to forgive me for that or whatever. Or if I were to write a set, I mean, when the comedy world is a little bit frowned upon because you're not supposed to write for other people, but people do have writers. So like if I were to write like an hour long bit of a special, and then that shit becomes classic, it's like, well, fuck, that was my work. And there's some people that don't give a fuck. It's just they're talented, they can write. Give me my money. Here you go. And they don't care for
And I guess
anything else.
it depends on your personality. Some people love to be in the spotlight, but they don't have the talent for writing their own stuff. And then there's some people who are terrified of walking out in front of a stage, but are more than capable of writing something absolutely hilarious.
And then you got people like me who are horrified to stepping in front of the spotlight and performing on the stage and can also write. That's still something I struggle with. I have really bad stage fright.
I would never guess that.
Well, now you know.
I think I have the opposite problem. I feel like I'm not as intimidated about being in front of people as I am about thinking that I'm insufficient or not good enough to be in front of them. Like I'll sing my heart out for you, but I don't think I'm any good doing it.
And I can't. Way back in the day, off of one of the bits that I run now, halfly, because I dropped the first part out. I don't know why. I run a bit on stage where I say that I talk about my fears on stage or obstacles or whatever. And one of the bits is where I said that I have stage fright. I was like, I have stage fright, which means that I have trouble or I'm horrified of speaking in front of people. No, y'all, really, stage fright is crippling, you know. And but what I used to say that was connected to that was that my ideal audience. Oh, and I would say something along the lines of that's why I hate an audience. I hate all of y'all. My ideal audience is not y'all. My ideal audience is if y'all could actually just close your eyes and not look at me, or turn the fuck around. No, seriously, y'all, turn around, or the show will not continue. And then there was that awkward silence, and usually that would get the laugh or whatever. But that's what I would normally say, and it's true. Like, I would be awesome to perform if you literally closed your eyes and didn't look at me. That would make me fucking.
Well, this goes back to the age-old conversation of, how do I get into comedy? Go to a fucking open mic.
Pretty much.
Every time I move this chair, it makes noises.
Oh,
It's doing it again.
no problem. I mean, I didn't think you farted. I mean, if that's what you were worried about.
When you work around 8th graders, there's just everything.
Just mindful of the fart joke.
Yeah.
The
teacher farted.
It never gets old for 8th graders.
And you should reply with something like, "No, I sharded. The joke's on you." Yeah.
That's so bad.
And on that piece of comedy gold, I know you said earlier you haven't been going out and performing a lot lately, but if I recall the conversation, you do have some stuff up available to listen to, correct?
I don't. Not yet.
I thought you did.
I took a shot in the dark. Apparently, I was wrong.
So if you guys would like to listen to more of my stuff, you're gonna have to press rewind and then loop that shit.
Oh shit! So, we need to get you on SoundCloud or some shit.
I've been wanting to. I honestly, honest to Jesus, I'm so insanely busy, and I have not been making time for what I should be making time for. So I promise, if anybody's interested, hit like, subscribe, press the little bell button so you can get all the notifications. And if this video gets 500 likes, I promise.
I knew where she was going with it. Nice marketing.
I sound like those videos that my kids watch. Cookie swirl, like whatever. Okay. And but yeah, I really do want to get something recorded because maybe somebody out there does like my stuff. Who knows? I'll never know.
I liked it. I mean, I've told everybody, every musician that's come in here, which have not been many, but this is the honest truth, and I don't mind saying it. I've only reached out to people to bring them on here that I feel that have like real talent. That's not to like shit on anybody else. Because I do understand it's not like I get out.
Why ain't you answering my calls, Freddy? I want to be on Bouncing Brain.
It's not. That's what I was gonna say. It's not like
I got this mixtape, dog.
You said you sold them out of the trunk of the car. So I'm not. That's what I was gonna say. I don't want to act like I'm this show is huge and the world listens to it. So what I'm saying is, it's either that I didn't feel that they were talented and they were just bullshitting, or I just may have not discovered you yet, and I don't know that you exist if you're out there. So if you're watching, or if you know somebody that's watching that you know that you feel
then
that are
hit
good,
like and then subscribe so you can get all the notifications.
She's a better marketable person.
Have your people get in touch with our people.
Yeah.
Send us a demo tape.
Who will eventually get in touch with my people.
There'll be people.
And we'll definitely get you on here. But anyway, Where was I going
That
with
definitely is not guaranteed by any means, ways, or resources.
Yeah.
So eventually we will get some music up on SoundCloud. We'll get some shit on Spotify. We will get shit on your mom's 8-track that she can blast inside her carcacha mobile.
So that's where I remember now. That's where I was going with it. So I wouldn't have reached out to you if I didn't feel like that you were you were talented, or that I genuinely like your music, because I will throw this out there as well. I ran into this other guy at an open mic. I'm not gonna say where, but I ran into him at an open mic, and he was freaking awesome. Like he sang these riffs. You know who he reminds me of? But as a solo band artist, guitarist, Bad Religion. Is it Bad Religion? Yeah, the band that sings that song. You
Okay.
do you know Bad Religion?
It doesn't matter. Keep going.
Okay. Well, he reminds me of that. He reminded me of that kind of artist, but as a solo with his guitar, and even his way, his delivery, and his songs and stuff like that. So I found him very
soothing.
Not soothing, but very entertaining, and also because he sang this song that I remember the title and I remember how the rhythm goes, but I can't remember the lyrics. It was called "Weed on a Cross," and that shit was not only entertaining, but it was funny. But
And it was literally about a joint shaped like a cross. No, I'm just kidding.
And well, the reason I point them out is because there is people that I wanted to reach out to, and I missed. Like that night that you were actually with me that night, at that open mic, and I wanted to reach out to him, but by the time that I tried, that he got off stage, he disappeared like most other people.
He vanished.
Yeah.
He was a spectre.
And then I think I went back the week after that, and he wasn't there. And then I tried. I went back the week after. I went like 2 weeks in a row, and he wasn't there. So I was like, "Fuck."
We've had that conversation about the the small town art scene type of thing, where you see a great band, and 6 months later they've all broken up. They're not speaking with each other, and nobody bothered to actually record the album.
Yeah, but who the fuck was this guy gonna break up with? It was just himself.
Hey, self-doubt's a motherfucker.
So yeah.
Yes, we would love to see you, publish. We'd love to see any artist out there publishing their stuff. I think that was part of where the conversation was going earlier. You have, if you think you're funny, go to an open mic. If you think you're talented in some other way, get it up on social media or something, YouTube video. There's a future Bob Ross out there right now talking about, painting happy little trees or whatever they're into.
Yeah.
And, yeah, kids, follow your dreams. I mean, you might find out they're horrible, horrible nightmares, but, you're never going to know until you get out there.
Until you follow them, yeah.
I wish I had better dreams.
So with that being said, this is the part of the show where you get...
Well, we break the piñata.
Shh.
You didn't bring one?
No, you were supposed to bring it.
Those are only...
I brought the chocolate.
It's only
It's
for
all
the
melted
Patreon
now because it's
subscribers.
Texas.
You brought chocolate?
No.
I was like, fuck, why am I just finding out about
I'm
this?
the chocolate
There's
fool.
not actually a piñata either.
Fuck. I actually got genuinely excited.
It's your house, man. It's
Never
like,
too
shit,
old
where'd
for
you hide it?
piñatas. All right, so this is the part of the show
Where you give out your social media and tell people where they can follow you, whether it be physically or mentally or emotionally.
Physically, I'm not giving out my address because I don't need that much fan, in my life. I love my fans. I support my fans, but I need my privacy. My
Good
dog
choice.
needs his privacy. No. If you'd like to follow me, Facebook, ANALYSSA, last name SHULTIS. Hit like, and you can know all about my crazy life. You can know more details than you will ever need to know about how stressful and how awesome teaching is. and I eventually I'll once in a while sprinkle a few lyrics or update on where I may be performing at. So catch me live on the fly.
You have any
Alright.
performances coming up?
I'm gonna try to do Luna this Saturday.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna do Luna this Saturday.
Why would
After I do that Girl Scouts
I
thing,
would-
because not only do I tutor, and not only am I UIL coach, and not only am I the AVID coordinator at my campus, but I'm a Girl Scout troop leader too.
Well, shit. I was about to say
You got spinning plates.
we should all try to do Luna this weekend, but when you stepped it up and say I'm gonna do
I'm
it,
gonna do Luna, and we're gonna do a live broadcast. No,
I don't know. At this
don't
point,
drag me into this.
at this point, these are her views only. So, but yeah,
You can catch me at Luna this Saturday, Luna Coffee House, Nolana, across from Cinemark Movie Theater. Me and Mr. Martin.
Run by the wonderful Sodas Magana.
And shout
Rhymes
out
with
to,
Lagana.
shout out to the owners there that I've been known my whole life and stuff, and they think that I somehow made it big, and that's why I never went back. No, I just want to let y'all know I'm still broke. It's just time consumption. I have not been able to make it out there, and I have a kid, so.
And they make the best chamomile tea and lunatic
They make
concoctions
awesome,
on the planet.
Awesome fucking Oreo frappe coffee something. It's like diabetes in a fucking cup, but it's like,
It's worth dying for. It's worth dying for. Take our word for it.
all right, and I guess I'll stop here because it sounds like a fucking sponsorship that I don't have. So, but yes, shouts out to Luna and George and Cindy. Thank you for having me the times that you had me before.
Good folks.
I never went back. I didn't do that on purpose. I promise. I'll be back.
He's just a bad person, that's all. Well, you can get in touch with me at hatfieldstandup@gmail.com as well as on Facebook and Twitter.
You can find me across the board on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Freddy G.
If you'd like to find the audio version of this podcast, you can go to shoutengine.com/bouncing brains. You can find us under Bouncing Brains on Stitcher, as well as the Google Music Play app, I believe. And you can find us on social media at Facebook under Bouncing Brains Podcast. You can reach out to us by email at bouncingbrainspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter under Bouncing Brains, and of course the video version of this podcast on YouTube under Bouncing Brains. Like, share, subscribe. We want that custom URL.
Word. And until
Perhaps
next,
too many words.
And until next time, folks, have a good night. Rub your mom.
Later.
Bye-bye.